My rant today, my daily take from HartmannReport.com is titled, "The Noble Lie Lives On in Crisis Pregnancy Centers as They Rake in Millions." Plato was the guy who founded this term, noble lie. This was 2,300 years ago. His noble lie had to do with the foundation and the philosophy of the city-state. You know, in other words, it was a mythology that would benefit, that would be told to people for their own good and for the benefit of the state. Well, I would say the noble lie lives on in these crisis pregnancy centers. These are places that do not offer abortion services. They do not offer contraception. They do not offer screening for sexually transmitted diseases. They basically just exist to try to talk women out of getting abortions. I plugged this into Neva.com. I think I've told you about this. This is a new search engine that I'm using pretty much exclusively now. They've got a great little app, iPhone app, which also works as a browser. You can install it in your other browsers, and they've got an AI, artificial intelligence-driven search engine. So you plug a phrase into Neva, and their little AI thing, just like GPT, gives you an AI response, and then below that you get all the links. And so I plugged in crisis pregnancy centers into Neva.com, and this is what it said, quote, "Crisis pregnancy centers, CPCs, are anti-abortion clinics with a hidden agenda and part of an industry built on misleading pregnant people with scare tactics and lies. They are designed to look like real health centers, but their goal is to scare, shame, or pressure people out of getting an abortion and to spread lies about abortion, birth control, and sexual health. CPCs are dangerous, predatory organizations that are a risk to public health," end quote. I couldn't have said it better. That said, they and their affiliated groups hauled in about $4 billion last year. We have 1/5 of our states now are funding these groups to the tune of big bucks. Texas, for example, has given them $100 million a year for the last 2 years. Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee, in his State of the State address, this was, I think, on Tuesday of this week, he said that the state, of Tennessee should be giving $100 million to the crisis pregnancy centers in that state. A database compiled by Repo Action found that there are over 2,600 of these nationwide. There's far more than there are, abortion providers or even Planned Parenthood offices. Olivia Reisner is an investigative reporter for Mayday, and she for an article that was published 3 months ago in Ms. Magazine, she went to Indianapolis. Actually, she went to 5 of them, Indianapolis crisis CPCs, and brought along a bottle of urine from a friend of hers who was pregnant, so that her pregnancy test would be positive, to see what they had to say to her. And she said that the first noble lie that they told her, she didn't use the word noble lie, it's my phrase, but it's Plato's phrase really, but was that, quote, "Girls that get abortions end up with high suicide rates." It's not true. Not even remotely true. In fact, if anything, the opposite is true. She also was told that if she gets an abortion and then later has a child, quote, "she won't be able to fully love him because I'll always be reminded that I took away his brother or sister," end quote. That lie was followed by a series of lies that abortion will scar her fallopian tubes. That's a lie. That she'd risk bulimia. That's a lie. That she'd risk anorexia. That's a lie. That she would become infertile. That's a lie. Researchers, in fact, at the University of California, San Francisco, did a 10-year, 1,000-patient study of women who got abortions and women who were turned away from getting abortions for a whole variety of reasons. And in fact, It's $5 Friday. You know what that is, right? There's two ways that people support Free Speech TV. One is by contributing just, a one-off donation. Call up 877-378-8669 and say, I'd like to contribute $100. Here's my credit card number. Just, ding the credit card and keep up the great work. And by the way, this is my favorite show, or, whatever. You have those kind of conversations. That's one way to contribute to Free Speech TV, is the one-off gifts. And we really appreciate those. Free Speech TV, or I should say really appreciates them. I'm speaking on their behalf. It's important, and particularly during our pledge drives, those one-off gifts are actually the main driver of our reaching our goals, which is why we do those pledge drives. But the second way that people contribute to Free Speech TV is the one that today is all about, that $5 Friday is all about. And that's the people who make a regular sustaining contribution. And what we're asking for today on $5 Friday is $5 a month. If you would just contribute $5 a month, that, if I'm doing my math right, is $60 a year, but it's spread out over the months. You call them up and tell them your favorite show and give them your credit card, and they will then every month ding your card for $5, and for as long as you say. You can say do it for a year or just do it until I tell you to stop. And the benefit of that to you, first of all, is that $5 a month is a lot easier than $60 one-off. But secondly, it helps Free Speech TV. I mean, one of the big challenges when you're running a nonprofit organization, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, is knowing what your cash flow is going to be like. If you're running an organization that depends on donations, you just never know. I mean, all kinds of things affect donations. First of all, some people just stop giving, or they die, or they go away, or they move out of state, or they change, whatever. Secondly, you've got other things that compete with donations. This is a real challenge for Free Speech TV in particular, because so much of our message is essentially political, or it's about politics, and politics has its own unique calendar. So, every 2 years you've got an election, and every 4 years you've got a presidential election. And leading up to those elections, you have primary elections. And during those primaries and during the general elections, there's just this massive outpouring of, politicians begging for money. And so what happens to Free Speech TV and a lot of other charities and a lot of other nonprofits, of course, is that during those periods of time, donations go way down because people are giving to their favorite politician instead of to Free Speech TV. So the benefit, through this of the $5 Friday, of the $5 contributions, is that those wild swings, after the election, donations go up because you don't have politicians begging for money. Before the next election, donations go down. To even out those swings, we get as many people as we can to say, yes, I'll give you $5 a month, or if you could afford more, that's fine. Nobody's going to stop you to say, make it $10. Or make it $25, or, I had a really good year. Make it $100 a month. Whatever you can do. But what that does is it evens out those wild cash flow swings that are just the bane of the existence of anybody who works in the nonprofit field. So $5 Friday, and by the way, a lot of people have answered this call. 43% of free speech donors in 2022. Now, it's not 43% of the revenue. That's 43% of the people. It's a smaller portion of the revenue. 43% of the revenue that Free Speech TV took in 2022 was from people making these regular sustaining contributions. Typically the $5 a month. So these are change makers helping to create a better world. And you can do it. You can be one of the change makers to help make a better world by simply giving $5 a month, or whatever you can afford, to help transform our society. By the way, the first 5 people at the beginning of every half hour who start a new monthly donation or increase their monthly donation, if you're already giving $5 a month, you can call up and say, hey, jack that up to 10. The first 5 people every half hour will receive a Free Speech TV mystery box in the mail. No, I don't know what's in it. It's a mystery. That's the whole point of mystery boxes. So Help out Free Speech TV. This is such an important venue. This television. We are literally the only genuinely progressive television network out there. We're certainly the only non-commercial progressive television network in America. We have a footprint all across the country. We're available on Dish, on Direct, on Hulu, actually I'm not sure about Hulu, on Roku, on Apple TV. I mean, Free Speech TV is all over the place. It's easy to find. Please help us with that, by the way, and tell your friends about Free Speech TV, tell your relatives, put it at the end of your emails as your signature. By the way, be sure to watch Free Speech TV. There's a lot of ways to find it. And of course, it's on the internet at freespeech.org. You can watch my program and all the other great programs on Free Speech TV every day. But the bottom line is, it's Friday. It's Free Speech TV, it's $5 Friday for Free Speech TV. And you can call now, 877-378-8669, and make your $5 gift and become one of the sustaining donors to this extraordinary network. So please, call now.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, happy Anti-Fascist Friday. It's Shabbat Shalom, Jumama Bada, good, TGIF, whatever it may be for you. It's the end of the week for us. Congressman Khanna is going to be with us in a few moments for the full hour, taking your calls in a National Progressive Townhall meeting. He's actually in a meeting right now, and he says he's going to be running like a bunny. Well, not his phrase, mine. to hook up with the show here shortly. So it'll be a few minutes, maybe 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes. We'll see. But he will be with us for the rest of the hour. In the second hour of our program, I want to get into how Trump could make bird flu a bird flu pandemic, and we're looking at some really serious concerns here, more deadly than COVID. Also, what happened to the Article 6, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution? We'll get into this in the second hour. This says no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust throughout the United States. Well, the Navy actually has a new idea about this. I'll tell you about that. And also in our second hour, the Republican Party has now come out and said who their austerity targets are. They've been saying we need to cut the budget to balance the budget. Well, what do they want to cut? Well, guess what? It's mostly food aid to poor families because, hey, they don't need to eat, right? And student debt relief. They want to end Biden's program. I'll tell you about there's a bunch more to that. I'll give you all the details in the second hour of the program. In the third hour of our program, a troubling anti-American movement is growing. Also, the railroad companies have blocked safety rules before the Ohio derailment. And the Saudis just sentenced an American, a 71 or 72-year-old American, whose crime was tweeting about the Saudi government saying that they should be held accountable for Khashoggi's murder. They just sentenced this American to 19 years in prison. Mohammed bin Salman. Amazing. He was in America when he tweeted those things. He went back to Saudi Arabia to sell some property that he owned there. He's an American citizen. He's been living here, since the 70s. So anyhow, I'll give you all the details on that in the third hour. As we're waiting for Congressman Khanna, I just wanted to share with you some of the headlines that Howard pulled together over at The Writing, the newsletter that summarizes what's going on the right wing every day. And, just to give you some context, when Democrats generally are publishing articles or tweeting or whatever, it's, you'll find me, from time to time trashing Republicans. It's kind of a sport, I suppose. But generally speaking, what Democrats are talking about is what they want to do for Americans. Joe Biden wants to offer student debt relief, $10,000 in debt relief to low-income students with student loans. Actually, I guess it's pretty much right across the board to students with student loans. We want to strengthen Social Security. We want to strengthen Medicare. And many of us think that we should have Medicare for all, that we should get for-profit insurance companies out of the business of, providing government paid-for health care, at least, altogether. We would like to have better public education, good public schools. You know, we basically talk about what we want. And I just find it fascinating how the Republican-controlled media, the Republican-controlled press, is kind of going in a very different direction. When your only commitment is to sucking up to right-wing billionaires who don't want to pay taxes and giant, mostly fossil fuel corporations that don't want their pollution to be regulated, chemical companies and fossil fuel companies, and making sure that banksters' profits are always protected. When that's your only real commitment, then what do you have? I mean, what can you say in your media? Well, here's just to give you an overview, you know, kind of a broad brush overview of what's going on across conservative media right now. Over at Townhall, this townhall.com, I guess it is. And I think Townhall, it was one of the right-wing commentators. It wasn't Tucker, was it? Tucker's was a different one. But anyhow, over at Townhall, it says, we deserve reparations from stupid people. Right. Over at BPR, not sure what that stands for, but it's the top story here. Putting down white people is the new national sport. Are you catching a theme here? It's, you know, something kind of regularly going on. This is from Fox News. Disney is disguising brainwashing as entertainment. Right. This is Disney's 7,000 job cuts. This is from Greg Gutfield. Disney's 7,000 job cuts are part of a bigger strategy to save $5.5 billion, which is more than enough to pay for the sex change surgeries for the Pirates of the Caribbean. This is what happens when you go woke. The saying is you go broke. And you can blame the cowardly execs who let the woke turn Disney into the joke it is now. I mean, you want to talk about transitioning? I mean, this is sick, twisted stuff. Ridiculing people who are going through really difficult times in their lives. I mean, you know, I have a relative who made a transition. And it's a big deal. And it's not taken lightly, and people struggle with this for years. Anyhow, American Thinker. They're talking about Joe's State of the Union address. This is, you know, some of these other right-wing sites. American Thinker, bad show, bad ratings. Slow Joe's State of the Union speech flops. I don't think they were watching it. Do you? This is from the Wall Street Journal. Biden's speech was Trumpian. He was deft and merry, and the GOP foolishly took his bait. The president had a good night. Well, that at least the Wall Street Journal, this is Peggy Noonan, so, you know, even when she doesn't like the news, she generally tells the truth. That's refreshing, I suppose. But American Spectator, another right-wing publication, says Biden will make us last again. Jeffrey Lord writes, we are seeing the rise of the anti-MALA Democrats, whatever that is. Washington Times, another right-wing publication. This is the one that used to be owned by the Moonies. I'm not sure who owns it now. The headline at Washington Times, Biden seems set on insisting Americans are all better off. Gee, I wonder why. Unemployment is 3.4%. It hasn't been there since 1965 or something, 64. You know, inflation is coming down. For the last 3 months, the average inflation rate has been under 2%. Wage growth is slowing, which will, you know, please the Fed, but, you know, it's kind of keeping up. Unionization is increasing across the United States. You know, I get it that, you know, these Republicans want to trash Biden, but, I mean, what do they have that they can trash him with? I just don't see anything, you know, which is kind of sad. The Daily Caller, that's the one that Tucker Carlson started. The headline there, Americans are crushed economically while Biden lives in fantasy land. Right. The American people are clamoring for policies that work, they write over at Daily Caller. Yeah, like taking unemployment to 3.4% and lowering inflation, you know, paying off $10,000 in student loans to millions of Americans, expanding health care. Well, no, that's not what they're talking about. They say the America First agenda has the solutions to solve inflation and get our economy booming again. Yelling at the American people won't make them believe our country's headed in the wrong direction. I think they meant yelling at the American people won't make them believe that our country is headed in the right direction, but whatever. The America First agenda, cut taxes on rich people, raise taxes on average people. I don't know if the American First movement has endorsed the 30% national sales tax, but, wouldn't surprise me. And then Gateway Pundit, Biden administration is lying about the Chinese balloon. Oh, God. And then back to, SteveGruber.com, back to the original theme about, trashing non-white people. What's so bad about the white male patriarchy? Oh, man. Hungarian conservative. Oh, geez, a new one. The gay BCs and the new generation of woke children. It's amazing. All righty, we're still waiting for Congressman Khanna. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It is 15 minutes past the hour. Stick around. I'll be back with you in just a moment. And welcome back. Okay, we just got the word from Congressman Khanna's people that the meeting he's in is not breaking up as early as they thought, and so he's going to cancel for today, and he'll be with us, next week or the week after or whatever. We'll see. So it's just going to be you and me here for the whole day, and I will pick up your phone calls. I can't answer your question as a congressman. My apologies. And so if you were committed to talking to Congressman Khanna, you could hang up and let somebody else call in, but I guess we're officially declaring anything goes Friday here. Nicholas in San Cristobal, Mexico. Hey, Nicholas, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Tom. I was wanting to speak with Ro, but I can speak with you as well about two things briefly. I wanted to know if, first of all, you knew anything about his vote for the denunciation of socialism with the Republicans the other.
I don't know why he voted that way, assuming that the press reports are accurate.
Yeah.
We'll find out next time he's on the show.
Okay. My greater question was going to be to him and to you as well, because you keep current on everything as well. 2 days ago, you may have also read in the New York Times a very disturbing article about artificial intelligence that is already being installed into Microsoft's Bing search engine. And the very next day, Google said, oh, my God, and they're hurrying it up as well, and they're going to install it into their main Google search engines. The greater article was about how behind everybody is on coming up with any kinds of controls over the dissemination of false information, outright lies, disinformation, completely fakes. That one Princeton professor posited 2 false theories and said, please write about this as a doctoral thesis. The thing came up within 5 seconds, a virtual doctoral thesis that he said was so convincing he almost could not tell it had not been written by one of his PhD candidates.
Yeah.
This is very scary. This is getting way out of control and moving way faster than most people, I think, have any idea. Do you have any idea if the government is yet, has in place yet any kind of, really serious effort to first understand what's happening, because it's moving apparently at lightning speed now. And if, I guess the other question is, do you have any confidence in the government, overcoming this kind of disinformation, as it's going to upset, I think, virtually everything? People won't know what's true. They apparently, these chatbots can document completely made up scientific studies, produce the data these fake studies studied, and convince people of the source of the studies.
I'm familiar with it, Nicholas.
What do you think's going on?
I have been for a month or two now. I've been using Neva.com, Neva.com as my search engine, and if you pay them a small fee, you actually have an AI interface at the very top. So you type in something, and the AI gives you the AI. I've also signed up for Chat GPT or CPT or whatever it's called. And I actually, on Chat CPT, I was showing this to Sean day before yesterday, I asked Chat GPT to write the op-ed that I intended to write, just to see what it had to say and what it found that I might have missed. Right. And it produced an op-ed from me. I said, write it in Thom Hartmann's voice. And it wrote it from me in a way that Sean reading it was like, it sure does read like your stuff. I mean, you know, it was really brilliant. I don't know, Nicholas, if the government is going to jump in on this. The thing I like about NEVAs is every statement they make, they hot link to the site where they got the data. So you can see if it's from some bizarre right-wing site or something. Yeah, I'm sorry, Nicholas, we're out of time. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. You know, James Baldwin was one of the greatest writers of the 20th century, of any type, and his insights into black cops and police in general are just brilliant. This is one of his writings about black policemen. He said, "Black policemen were another matter. We used to say, if you must call a policeman, for God's sake, make sure it's a white one." And we hardly ever did call a policeman. A black policeman could completely demolish you. He knew far more about you than a white policeman could, and you were without defenses before this black brother in uniform, whose entire reason for breathing seemed to be his hope to offer proof that, though he was black, he was not black like you. Baldwin goes on to talk about, you know, black cops and his father and his relationship with his father and just the general violence perpetrated against black people. There's a whole video about it over at thomhartmann.com. You can check it out. And welcome back. 21 minutes past the hour. We just heard from Congressman Khanna's office that he can't get out of the meeting. They thought the meeting was going to wrap up. It has turned into a marathon session, and so we're going to just postpone his appearance on the program today until next week or the week after. So, probably next week. We'll see. So you're stuck with me for the next 3 hours. I hope that's all right. One other FYI, on Monday, Jefferson Smith will be filling in for me. You'll recall a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I asked you to keep my niece, Annie, in your thoughts or prayers or whatever, because she was going through a rough time. She was dog sitting a friend's dog. She got scratched. The scratch got infected with MRSA, it turns out. She went to the hospital when her leg swelled up. And for 6 days, they gave her the wrong antibiotics, and then they amputated her left leg, then they amputated her right leg, then they amputated her right hand, and now she's in complete organ failure, and on Wednesday, they're taking her off the kidney machine, and they're going to let her die. And so I'm flying out to Michigan to essentially say goodbye. Wow, excuse me, it just hit me, what's going on with one of my kids. So Jefferson will be here. No, please don't, offer condolences or say anything about it. I'd rather not talk about it anymore today. But just FYI, that's why I won't be here on Monday. I'll be back on Tuesday. So let's pick up your phone calls here. It's Anything Goes Friday. Brad in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. Hey, Brad, what's on your mind today?
I just wanted to say have a safe trip and come back in good shape, both physically and mentally. But I have a suggestion for you about Ron DeSantis, which I think you will appreciate. And I've started spelling in my posts about him Ron and his last name DESSANTIS with the S's capitalized, because he book banning, the totalitarian, cruel, gratuitously cruel and malicious nature of him fits right in. Yeah, it's a shame they don't have a font that's got the S's that look like the lightning bolts. That would be perfect. Maybe they do. Maybe there is, some font that does that. Probably not, though. I would guess not. But I if you could, I think the Democrats really need to go hard on him and showcase what he's doing, and I'm sure they will. But He, to me, is the far right-wing wackadoodle party. He's the greatest threat.
Yeah, maybe. He's also a very fragile guy. He doesn't react well when he's contradicted. He doesn't react well when the guy's a bully. And he hasn't been tested on a national stage. And I should qualify this statement by pointing out that I didn't think that Donald Trump was going to get elected president. There were a couple of times when I said, well, it's possible, but I didn't really believe it. I thought Hillary was going to walk away with it. So I might be completely wrong about this, but my sense of it is that Ron DeSantis probably, we'll see. Probably won't be the nominee, but I'm not sure who else would be. So it's a tough one. Brad, thank you. I got to move along here, but thank you. David in Columbus, Ohio. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for being in there every day. You're very reliable.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask the congressman why the strategic arms limitation talks weren't ever mentioned in the State of the Union, and also windfall profits tax. I think
Russia's not participating in those talks, are they?
Well, I'm not sure what's happening. It doesn't get. Nobody brings it up. Almost every president since Reagan's has talked about strategic arms limitations, and I haven't heard Biden bring it up. Maybe he did, but
I think in his first year, I remember a news story. In fact, I remember briefly talking about it on the air maybe a year ago. So I'm guessing that we might have reached out or tried to start the talks before the Ukraine invasion, but I would be surprised if there has been any of that kind of dialogue between the United States and Russia. Although I don't know. I mean, please subject this to a fact check.
Well, there could be between other nations.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be just Russia.
That's true.
I think Putin's days are numbered, but also windfall profits, that could be distributed to a lot of good efforts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll dig into that a little more in the second hour of the program. Absolutely, David. Thank you for the call. We'll be right back. It's 27 minutes past the hour. Stick around. It's Anything Goes Friday. Whatever's on your mind.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment. Hey, it's $5 Friday. You know what that is, right? There's two ways that people support Free Speech TV. One is by contributing just, a one-off donation. Call up 877-378-8669 and say, I'd like to contribute $100. Here's my credit card number. Just, ding the credit card and keep up the great work. And by the way, this is my favorite show, or, whatever. You have those kind of conversations. That's one way to contribute to Free Speech TV, is the one-off gifts. And we really appreciate those. Free Speech TV, or I should say really appreciates them. I'm speaking on their behalf. It's important, and particularly during our pledge drives, those one-off gifts are actually the main driver of our reaching our goals, which is why we do those pledge drives. But the second way that people contribute to Free Speech TV is the one that today is all about, that $5 Friday is all about. And that's the people who make a regular sustaining contribution. And what we're asking for today on $5 Friday is $5 a month. If you would just contribute $5 a month, that, if I'm doing my math right, is $60 a year, but it's spread out over the months. You call them up and tell them your favorite show and give them your credit card, and they will then every month ding your card for $5. And, for as long as you say, you can say do it for a year or just do it until I tell you to stop. And the benefit of that to you, first of all, is that, $5 a month is a lot easier than $60, one off. But secondly, it helps Free Speech TV. I mean, one of the big challenges when you're running a nonprofit organization, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, is knowing what your cash flow is going to be like. If you're running an organization that depends on donations, you just never know. I mean, all kinds of things affect donations. First of all, some people just stop giving, or they die, or they go away, or they move out of state, or they change, whatever. Secondly, you've got other things that compete with donations. This is a real challenge for Free Speech TV in particular, because so much of our message is essentially political, or it's about politics, and politics has its own unique calendar. So, every 2 years you've got an election, and every 4 years you've got a presidential election. And leading up to those elections, you have primary elections. And during those primaries and during the general elections, there's just this massive outpouring of, politicians begging for money. And so what happens to Free Speech TV and a lot of other charities and a lot of other nonprofits, of course, is that during those periods of time, donations go way down because people are giving to their favorite politician instead of to Free Speech TV. So the benefit, through this of the $5 Friday, of the $5 contributions, is that those wild swings, after the election, donations go up because you don't have politicians begging for money. Before the next election, donations go down. To even out those swings, we get as many people as we can to say, yes, I'll give you $5 a month, or if you could afford more, that's fine. Nobody's going to stop you to say, make it $10. Or make it $25, or, I had a really good year. Make it $100 a month. Whatever you can do. But what that does is it evens out those wild cash flow swings that are just the bane of the existence of anybody who works in the nonprofit field. So $5 Friday. And by the way, a lot of people have answered this call. 43% of free speech donors in 2022. Now, it's not 43% of the revenue. That's 43% of the people. It's a smaller portion of the revenue. 43% of the revenue that Free Speech TV took in 2022 was from people making these regular sustaining contributions. Typically the $5 a month. So these are change makers helping to create a better world. And you can do it. You can be one of the change makers to help make a better world by simply giving $5 a month or whatever you can afford to help transform our society. By the way, the first 5 people at the beginning of every half hour who start a new monthly donation or increase their monthly donation, if you're already giving $5 a month, you can call up and say, hey, jack that up to 10. The first 5 people every half hour will receive a Free Speech TV mystery box in the mail. No, I don't know what's in it. It's a mystery. That's the whole point of mystery boxes. So help out Free Speech TV. This is such an important venue, this television. We are literally the only genuinely progressive television network out there. We're certainly the only non-commercial progressive television network in America. We have a footprint all across the country. We're available on Dish, on Direct, on Hulu, actually I'm not sure about Hulu, on Roku, on Apple TV. I mean, Free Speech TV is all over the place. It's easy to find. Please help us with that, by the way, and tell your friends about Free Speech TV, tell your relatives, put it at the end of your emails as your signature. By the way, be sure to watch Free Speech TV. There's a lot of ways to find it. And of course, it's on the internet at freespeech.org. You can watch my program and all the other great programs on Free Speech TV every day. But the bottom line is, it's Friday. It's Free Speech TV, it's $5 Friday for Free Speech TV. And you can call now, 877-378-8669, and make your $5 gift and become one of the sustaining donors to this extraordinary network. So please, call now. Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann program. Welcome back. 34 minutes past the hour. Oh my God, there's another George Santos. You thought it was just George, right? Well, it's not just George. The Washington Post just did a deep dive into Republican from Florida, Representative Anna Paulina Luna. What is it with Republicans from Florida? just being BS machines. She ran for office and won. She's in Congress right now as a Hispanic conservative who grew up poor, survived a home invasion, and lost her grandmother to HIV/AIDS because of heroin use. But those details have come as a surprise to family members and friends who knew her before she entered politics 5 years ago. She did not grow up poor. She's apparently not Hispanic. Her grandmother apparently didn't die from HIV/AIDS. One of her friends, a former roommate, said she would really change who she was based on what fit the best situation at the time. In the past, she has described herself as being Jewish, which she's apparently not either. And she was a registered Democrat in 2017 and a big supporter of Barack Obama. Right. It's amazing. Keep an eye on this one. Anyhow, picking up your calls, it's Anything Goes Friday. As I said, Mary in Chicago. Hey, Mary, what's on your mind today?
Yes, I think what is going on right now is that the people have forgotten how bad it was when Biden got in. We basically, tore apart the public health system that was in place back in the 50s. And that's why we're having this virus going on right now.
Yeah, well, I noted that there was an op-ed that I got in the mail. No, it was on. I'm trying to remember where it was. I'm pretty sure day before yesterday on The Writing. This newsletter that has all the right-wing sites. One of their sites, their lead story was Biden inherited the fastest growing economy in American history, which of course is not true. What Biden inherited was an absolute screaming, flaming mess. But you can count on the Republicans to lie about things. Mary, thank you for the call. Jeff in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. We talk a lot about DeSantis in Florida and DeSantis, and I want to talk about Kim Reynolds in Iowa.
Okay, go for it.
I think she makes sometimes DeSantis look like a choir boy.
Right. For people who don't know, she's the Republican governor of Iowa.
Absolutely, sir. And she has a full house of Republicans in the state legislature. And, of course, and you have talked about how they take taxpayer money to give to private and Christian schools. And that's already our public schools are already saying they're going to have to start cutting back and stuff now. They've introduced legislation that teachers will be sued if they happen to people get a hold of books in the schools that they ban. The teacher will be subject to be sued by a parent if this book happens or they talk about LGBTQ, anything like that. She passed a bill, it's on her desk right now, that if you get hurt by a doctor, the cap is $1 million. That's it. That's all you can get. If they mess up a surgery or anything, they also are introducing legislation that will allow 14-year-old kids to go to work because we have no workforce. Our unemployment is so low, we have no workforce. So now they're going to bring kids in to do the workforce. Right,
rather than letting refugees or asylum seekers or even illegal immigrants, in quotes, do those jobs.
Higher wages.
Or pay higher wages. Yeah, that's the more obvious one, Jeff. Yes, absolutely. Bring people back into the workforce by offering them enough money.
So, like I say, look out. It's not just DeSantis. It's right here. Yeah. And it's a crying shame. I used to love this state. I've moved up here, and I've lived here, and I call it the hate state now.
That's so
because
sad.
It has changed so much. And how would you like to be a business and come to this state?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to bring my business here.
And I am guessing that pretty much every city of any consequence in Iowa has a right-wing hate radio station.
Absolutely. Probably 5 of them.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we've got 3 of them here in Portland. I mean, big sticks. I mean, radio stations that throw huge signals, over, massive areas, multi-state areas. And, but 3 radio stations in one town. And then there's, another half a dozen of them scattered around the state. Jeff, I got to run, but thank you for the call. That's disheartening. Frank in Thompson Falls, Montana. Hey, Frank, how's Montana today?
Oh, it's good. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to add something about the policing of America.
Mm-hmm.
It basically has to do with anybody who's other. I'm a older gentleman in my 60s, and I ride motorcycles, and I've been held at gunpoint I don't know how many times for something as minor as a taillight out on my motorcycle.
By police, you mean?
And so, yeah.
At gunpoint?
Exactly. Yep. In fact, 5 years ago, I was pulled over for my taillight, and I went to get off my motorcycle, and he told me to stay on my motorcycle. I said, well, I'm getting my wallet out of my back pocket, and he told me to not move and keep my hands on the handlebars. And I'm going, geez. I go, this is just a little bit of overkill for a traffic stop, isn't it? Yeah. And he says, well, you can never be too safe in today's society.
Wow.
But it's been going on since the 70s. I got pulled over years ago for being Patty Hearst in the SLA, and was put face down in the dirt with a shotgun to the back of my head.
Wow.
And it's because of the fact that you don't fit the normal. You got long hair or beard, and like with my motorcycle, I don't ride with Hell's Angels or anybody like that. I just have a normal bike with a normal leather coat.
Right. But you've got long hair and you're on a bike.
Fit a mold, exactly. Anybody that doesn't fit the mold of normal America, then they're concerned and they're scared of it.
Yeah, that's sad. That's really sad.
Yeah.
Well, and if you were black, you'd probably be dead by now. Frank.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your story. It's a grim one, but it's a story people need to hear. Thank you. Scott in Denton, Texas. Hey, Scott, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Tom. Hey, this deal about becoming a Christian nation, and let's go right back to DeSantis. Mm-hmm. I know that there's a lot of retired Jews down in Florida, and if we're going to be a Christian nation, what's he going to do? I mean, lure everybody to Disney World, put them on a happiness train out to, like Arizona, and offer them a free shower or sauna.
Yeah, right.
I'll take my answer off the air.
Well, Scott, I don't. That's an interesting question. Because there are a lot of retired people from New York, and a lot of them are Jewish in Florida. And I don't know what the population ratios and numbers are, though, and I don't know how DeSantis is dealing with that. It's a good question. Sorry, I don't have an easy answer for you. Ben in Oceanside, California. Hey, Ben, what's up?
Hello?
Hey, Ben, you're on the air.
Yeah, okay. First off is, on a personal note, I want to thank you for making me recognize how generous my father really was. And then I want to talk to you about cryptocurrencies and your lack of understanding, really. I hate to put it that way because you're a very intelligent man, but cryptocurrencies are air. There's no value. There's no nothing to cryptocurrencies. Their only value is intrinsic. Does that help you out?
Yeah, except that they don't have an intrinsic value. They have an extrinsic value. Their value is determined by the marketplace. Something that has intrinsic value, gold has intrinsic value. You can sell it, regardless of circumstances, consequences, or whatever. These are just numbers. These are ones and zeros.
No. I disagree with you on that, sir. The gold has a value. It's a commercial item. It has an ounce value. Now, if you put it into coin, the additional value is intrinsic. And I'm saying
the core value is intrinsic. Intrinsic means in the nature of the thing itself, within it. Extrinsic is value defined by external circumstances outside of it. You're using your words wrong, Ben, respectfully.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I appreciate the correction, but still, extrinsic value?
Yeah, well, let's set aside the $5 words. What's the point you're trying to make?
Is that cryptocurrency is thin air.
I agree.
There is no value. other than what people place on it.
Yeah, I would never buy cryptocurrency. I would never invest in it. I think that we're going through a Dutch tulip bulb moment here, or at least we were. It popped a little while ago when Sam Bankman-Fried's exchange went down. But I see this as a scam, frankly.
Exactly. Now, I got introduced to cryptocurrency when you were on RTTV.
Oh, that was a long time ago, yeah.
And no, that's when I got introduced to it. And I determined that because of the way they were marketing it, et cetera, that basically it was a self-perpetuating pump and dump scam.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that characterization, Ben. I think that, if you think we're disagreeing, we're not. I completely agree with you. Thank you. It's 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann program. You and me, all 3 hours. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Fair and only slightly unbalanced. We'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Bob in Huntington, New York. Hey, Bob, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for what you do. Love your program.
Thank you.
And I'm calling about Adam Schiff, who I think is really a good guy, but I was kind of disappointed to hear his very strong stance vis-a-vis Israel. I'm in the same frequency as you concerning the treatment of the Palestinians by Israel, and I'm rather I don't get it how so many American politicians conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, and I was surprised to see such a reasonable man, such a good guy, really, with a strong stance he expressed on Israel.
Yeah, I get that, Bob, and it is a tough one. I mean, I've been to Israel a number of times. I've spent a fair amount of time there. I helped start a nonprofit there. One of probably my 5 or 10 best friends in the world lives there. We Zoom call typically every month, and I get it. Particularly after the Holocaust, creating a state for the Jewish people, a Jewish homeland. I totally get it.
Absolutely.
But the two-state solution, is setting aside space for the displaced Palestinians and the Palestinians that are now in this essentially open-air prison, in Gaza, and stopping the theft of land from Palestinians seems to me like the right thing to do. And Netanyahu, of course, will not even discuss that. So I don't think the issue is so much Israel as it is the right-wing government that's running Israel right now, and has been for some time.
It seems to me one of the issues is going all the way back to the Balfour Declaration, that they never asked the Palestinians. They asked everybody else. Yeah. I mean, I'm not extremely well informed on this, but the impression I get is they asked everybody but the Palestinians.
Yeah, I'm not a scholar of that moment in history. I'm sure it could have been handled differently or better or whatever, but it is what it is right now. And the other point that I think is really important to make is that while there are nuanced critiques of Israel, like you and I are making, that they could be doing this thing right and they're doing it wrong. And frankly, I think we could say much of the same thing about the United States and the way that we've dealt with the ancestors of slavery in the United States.
Yes.
We still have,
and it's all coming back to chickens are coming home to roost.
Right. We have
with all the immigration problems to this country. If we hadn't processed,
we have some house cleaning to do here too. But I think that we have to acknowledge that much of the criticism of Israel is actually coming out of anti-Semites. You've got, and it's kind of splitting the right, because you've got people on the right who love Netanyahu and believe that, apartheid in Israel is something that we should have here in the United States, basically, right? Racial separation or religious separation at the very least. And then you've got also on the right people who just hate Jews and therefore they criticize Israel. So they're kind of schizophrenic about it. Bob, I got to run, but thank you for the call. It's it's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. We'll be right back with more of your calls in about 60 seconds. Stick around. Help support Progressive Radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio and tag you're it. Just some amazing stuff going on over on Fox News. Megan Lapp and David Stevenson have been regular guests across Fox News, and they're claiming to be all worried about whales, all these whales that are dying off the east coast of the United States, arguing that these are the result of the windmills that are out there, right? The ocean wind and the work done to install them. Well, it turns out that Lapp works for an organization whose largest donor is Charles Koch. Whose largest donor is the Texas Public Policy Foundation that gets their money from Charles Koch. And Stevenson works for a group whose largest donor, the Caesar Rodney Institute, is the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers. So if you have friends who are watching Fox News and they're concerned about the whales, you might want to let them know what's going on. There's a whole video about it over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. Okay, picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Friday. Robert in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Hey, Robert, what's up?
Yes, I was curious about how Scott wants to sunset all the federal programs every 5 years and that they have to re-up them every 5 years. And my point is, they can't even handle the bill load that they have now, and they want to do it times 20 and see if they can get 20 times the work done in the same amount of time.
Right, it's a backdoor way of ending Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, all the so-called welfare programs that the right-wing billionaires who fund Rick Scott hate.
Yeah, I understand that, but nobody's ever called him out and said, well, how do you plan on handling that workload if you can't even do your workload right now?
Yeah,
that's
good
another
question.
Point to throw out and say, wait a minute.
Yeah. I think it's just hysterical that, Rick Scott actually published this 50-page booklet or whatever, about his 11-point plan, and which, calls for sunsetting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And Joe Biden is doing this tour. He was in Florida yesterday. He was in Wisconsin the day before that, I believe. And he's carrying around a pocket, a copy of it in his vest pocket, and pulling it out and waving it around and reading from it. And here's what Rick Scott says. And this is the guy who, challenged Mitch McConnell for leadership of the Senate. This is the guy who was the chairman of the Senate Republican Senatorial Committee. I believe I believe that's right. Whatever the acronym is, in charge. He was in charge of raising money. I think he raised over $50 million to re-elect senators, and of course that didn't work out so well. The guy, and he's the former, the company that he built and was the CEO of was convicted of the largest Medicare fraud in the history of America. So you can understand why he might want to get rid of Medicare. Robert, thank you. Excellent points all. George in Toledo. Hey, George, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I just want to give a little bit of an economic basis, sort of give you a different perspective on things that you already know, but might think about it from my perspective and say, that's interesting. What I want to talk about is the economic basis of things that happen, and specifically your penchant for waxing nostalgic about the Republican Party and the era of Dwight Eisenhower as president and so forth.
Well, it's
and
a qualified wax. I'll tell you, it's a very qualified wax. But at least he wasn't nuts.
Yes. Okay. But my point is that at that point in time, most of the world's manufacturing was either obsolete or bombed out from the Second World War. And we had very few competitors, and our markets were expanding. So you and I grew up in a time period when capitalist markets for the American industries was expanding. So, that was a time period when unions were winning wage gains and benefit gains and so forth. But now we're in the era of export your jobs to low wage nations. And my point is, when capitalism expands, it creates a middle class. So yes, the unions did fight to win their benefits, but the capitalists caved in fast enough because they said, we're rolling in money. Let's give these people some money. In fact, let's look at Henry Ford. He created the Model T, and he assumed that only farmers would want to buy it. But when he started putting his product on the market, he found doctors, lawyers, everybody wanted a car. Everybody wanted one. So his markets were expanding. So what did he do? He raised the wages of his workers because he wanted a reliable workforce. He concentrated every single aspect of production into the River Rouge plant. Now we're in a time period when we're doing the opposite. We're exporting jobs, we're subcontracting, we're doing all these things that crush the wage rate. And we've been in this episode for 40 to 50 years.
42 years.
And now, yes, so now we're in an era where these people who are big capitalists, crony capitalists, they want to crush the social wage rate. Social Security, Medicare. That's the social wage rate that's paid to the American people. And they want to crush that now. Why? Why is this all happening? It's because the profit rate is declining. And I really appreciate you're having Professor Richard Wolff as your guest. He lays things out very clearly. I know you're a historical scholar and a political savant.
Okay, let me just respond real quickly because we're in a break. I'll let you talk. Henry Ford did not want to raise his wages. He was forced to by his partner, who later became a state senator, and his wife. We're out of time. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. George, thank you for the call. I need to start interrupting people when they go on and on and on so that we can... Anyway, we'll be right back. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com. $5 Friday. You know what that is, right? There's two ways that people support Free Speech TV. One is by contributing just, a one-off donation. Call up 877-378-8669 and say, I'd like to contribute $100. Here's my credit card number. Just, ding the credit card and keep up the great work. And by the way, this is my favorite show, or, whatever. You have those kind of conversations. That's one way to contribute to Free Speech TV, is the one-off gifts. And we really appreciate those. Free Speech TV, or I should say really appreciates them. I'm speaking on their behalf. It's important, and particularly during our pledge drives, those one-off gifts are actually the main driver of our reaching our goals, which is why we do those pledge drives. But the second way that people contribute to Free Speech TV is the one that today is all about, that $5 Friday is all about. And that's the people who make a regular sustaining contribution. And what we're asking for today on $5 Friday is $5 a month. If you would just contribute $5 a month, that, if I'm doing my math right, is $60 a year, but it's spread out over the months. You call them up and tell them your favorite show and give them your credit card, and they will then every month ding your card for $5, and for as long as you say. You can say do it for a year or just do it until I tell you to stop. And the benefit of that to you, first of all, is that $5 a month is a lot easier than $60, one off. But secondly, it helps Free Speech TV. I mean, one of the big challenges when you're running a nonprofit organization, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, is knowing what your cash flow is going to be like. If you're running an organization that depends on donations, you just never know. I mean, all kinds of things affect donations. First of all, some people just stop giving, or they die, or they go away, or they move out of state, or they change, whatever. Secondly, you've got other things that compete with donations. This is a real challenge for Free Speech TV in particular, because so much of our message is essentially political, or it's about politics, and politics has its own unique calendar. So, every 2 years you've got an election, and every 4 years you've got a presidential election. And leading up to those elections, you have primary elections. And during those primaries and during the general elections, there's just this massive outpouring of, politicians begging for money. And so what happens to Free Speech TV and a lot of other charities, a lot of other nonprofits, of course, is that during those periods of time, donations go way down because people are giving to their favorite politician instead of to Free Speech TV. So the benefit, through this of the $5 Friday, of the $5 contributions, is that those wild swings, after the election, donations go up because you don't have politicians begging for money. Before the next election, donations go down. To even out those swings, we get as many people as we can to say, yes, I'll give you $5 a month, or if you could afford more, that's fine. Nobody's going to stop you to say, make it $10. Or make it $25, or, I had a really good year. Make it $100 a month. Whatever you can do. But what that does is it evens out those wild cash flow swings that are just the bane of the existence of anybody who works in the nonprofit field. So $5 Friday. And by the way, a lot of people have answered this call. 43% of free speech donors in 2022. Now, it's not 43% of the revenue. That's 43% of the people. It's a smaller portion of the revenue. 43% of the revenue that Free Speech TV took in 2022 was from people making these regular sustaining contributions. Typically the $5 a month. So these are change makers helping to create a better world. And you can do it. You can be one of the change makers to help make a better world by simply giving $5 a month, or whatever you can afford, to help transform our society. By the way, the first 5 people at the beginning of every half hour who start a new monthly donation or increase their monthly donation, if you're already giving $5 a month, you can call up and say, hey, jack that up to 10. The first 5 people every half hour will receive a Free Speech TV mystery box in the mail. No, I don't know what's in it. It's a mystery. That's the whole point of mystery boxes. So Help out Free Speech TV. This is such an important venue. This television. We are literally the only genuinely progressive television network out there. We're certainly the only non-commercial progressive television network in America. We have a footprint all across the country. We're available on Dish, on Direct, on Hulu, actually I'm not sure about Hulu, on Roku, on Apple TV. I mean, Free Speech TV is all over the place. It's easy to find. Please help us with that, by the way, and tell your friends about Free Speech TV. Tell your relatives. Put it at the end of your emails as your signature. By the way, be sure to watch Free Speech TV. There's a lot of ways to find it. And of course, it's on the internet at freespeech.org. You can watch my program and all the other great programs on Free Speech TV every day. But the bottom line is, it's Friday. It's Free Speech TV, it's $5 Friday for Free Speech TV. And you can call now, 877-378-8669, and make your $5 gift and become one of the sustaining donors to this extraordinary network. So please, call now. Kingdom of the Unjust.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to the second hour of our program. The pro-Western president of Moldova, which is a former Soviet state that a long strip of which is of that country is along the western border of Ukraine, is stepping down today. Natalia Gavrilita, who is an economist, she's been prime minister for 2 years. The elections gave a strong pro-Western majority in parliament. So this is probably not going to change the course of Moldova, supporting the West against Putin. But apparently what provoked this is that Putin has cut off natural gas to the country. And then Ilian M. Shor, a convicted fraudster and fugitive billionaire, has been using his money to pay street protesters in Moldova. So she's got a real crisis on her hands here, and she's just packing it in and saying, "Okay, I'm out of here." Meanwhile, in the United States House of Representatives, 10 Republicans have just come out and said, actually 11 Republicans have just come out and introduced legislation to end U.S. aid to Ukraine. I'm not kidding you. Not making this up. Matt Gaetz, Rosendale, the members of Congress, Mr. Rosendale, Mr. Moore, Ms. Miller, Mr. Massey, of course Thomas Massey. He's the guy who thinks that we should. He's like preparing for the apocalypse. Representative Luna, the one I was just telling you about, who campaigned on being Jewish, and then she campaigned on being Hispanic, and maybe is neither, and then campaigned on her mother dying of AIDS, and no, she didn't. Okay, but quack. Congressman Norman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, Andy Biggs, and Bang Bang Boebert. Whatever happened with that deal with her husband who whipped out his penis to a teenager in a bowling alley or something, got arrested for it? Maybe they're still married, I don't know. Anyhow, those guys want to end our support for Ukraine. You might want to let them know what you think of that. The number for all of their offices is 202-224-3121. It's pretty outrageous stuff, Very outrageous. Okay, my op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com is titled "How Trump Could Make a Bird Flu Pandemic More Deadly Than COVID." And, I mentioned this a week ago, and it's worth revisiting. The bird flu is H5N1 virus, and it has popped up among egg-laying chickens, but it has now spread to, they just found some dead seals. It has shown up in 920 counties across all 50 states here in the United States. It's now spread to wild birds. 863 people, according to the World Health Organization, have contracted this from birds. 456 of them have died. That's a 52.8% fatality rate. Ebola, by comparison, kills 40% of people. Now, the concern is that this is going to jump into humans. It's already jumped into mink, bears, and seals. and of course wild birds. And if it jumps into humans, the odds are that it won't remain that lethal. It won't kill half of all the people who get it. Diseases, viruses that are that virulent, like Ebola, tend to be self-limiting because they kill their hosts so quickly and they freak people out. But even if it went down to 2.5%, lethality instead of 52.8%, which is where it's at right now, even if it went down to 2.5%, that would be where the Spanish flu was of 1918. COVID, by comparison, is 1.4% lethal among unvaccinated people. So that's the problem that we're facing, is this virus, and it has not yet acquired the ability to be transmitted from one person to another. But all it would take is for the virus to infect a person who already has regular flu, which contains the gene for that human-to-human transmission, and for that gene to jump to the virus, and boom, you've got a new human flu, a human H5N1 flu. And that could be very bad news. That could be very, very dangerous. And it would be doubly dangerous here in the United States. And the reason for that is that back before the Trump administration, the majority of Americans actually believed medical science. The vast majority of Americans, in fact, believed their doctors, they believed science, they trusted the CDC and the FDA. They believed that things were right. But Donald Trump, when he was president, wanted to get people back to work, particularly after the April 7th headline that said that, more black people were dying from COVID than white people. And that was kind of the turning point that was the turning point for the Trump administration. After that, they were like, let's get back to work. Because, he had an election coming and he wanted the economy to be vibrant. And in fact, the only executive order he used, under the Defense Production Act, was not to make tests or to make masks. It was to force black and brown workers back into slaughterhouses. And this is what he did. This is what he did. And as a result of all of his efforts to get people back to work by trash talking Anthony Fauci, right after this headline appeared, he called for Anthony Fauci to be prosecuted, on a tweet. So all of this stuff where he's trash talking the CDC, trash talking the FDA, now trash talking the vaccines, all of that has led to Americans no longer trusting, only 27% of Republicans today trust the CDC. Only 34% of Republicans even trust their own doctors. It used to be like with Democrats, 80, 90% of Republicans trusted their doctors and trusted the CDC. So now if we get a bad pandemic and the CDC or the federal government comes out and says, okay, here's the vaccine, let's do a mass vaccination program, let's try to stop this pandemic before it starts, ain't gonna happen, right? They just ain't gonna happen. So this could be really, really dangerous, all because Donald Trump and his racism and his desire to continue as Emperor of America, or even, expand that to become Emperor of America. You can read the whole story over at HartmannReport.com, including, with links to all the pieces of it. There is a provision in the United States Constitution, it's Article 6, Section 3, which says that there shall be no religious test for holding a job, basically, in the United States of America. No religious test. In fact, it says, quote, no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Well, the public trust includes being in the military. And now we've got this new regulation from the Navy. It's Op Nav INST 1731F, Religious Ministry in the Navy. It was issued last November. And it says that the new job of commanders is spiritual readiness. And new members of the Navy are now, quote, required to offer new check-ins the opportunity to complete a religious needs assessment, which is, essentially a religious test. What is your religion? All this kind of stuff. And if you decline to do it, then they know that you don't have a religion, which is, another kind of test. I find this totally bizarre. We have heard, we had Mikey Weinstein on here years ago. Really should get him back on about, what's going on with the Air Force Academy. His son went through the Air Force Academy. Mikey and his son are Jewish, and his son was just harassed to no end for being Jewish by these right-wing Christians who had essentially taken over the Air Force Academy. It's just remarkable. It's bad stuff. One last story I want to share with you real quickly, and then we'll get back to Anything Goes Friday and your calls. Biden has been saying, okay, Republicans, if you want to, hold up the debt ceiling in exchange for cutting spending, tell me what spending you want cut. And, it had been that they were talking about Medicare and Medicaid, but he kind of backed him into a corner on that. So now they've come out and said, okay, Brennan Doyle, the Democrat from Pennsylvania, says that this is a needless attack on the vulnerable, but they have laid it on the table. Jody Arrington, a Republican from Texas, is the chair of the House Budget Committee, and he put forward $780 billion in spending cuts. Half of that is ending Joe Biden's program to give $10,000 of debt relief to people with student loans. So if you have student loans, the Republicans' official message to you is the middle finger. And the other half of that is cutting programs like electric vehicle funding, affordable care subsidies, food for low-income people, food stamps. I mean, because, low-income people don't need to eat. Just whip them a little harder, and they'll keep working. It's just breathtaking. You wonder what this is going to do for Jody Arrington's, for his political future. This Republican from Texas, who's the chair of the House Budget Committee, who's pitching this. I think Brendan Boyle, the Democrat from Pennsylvania, said it right. He said, why is it that whenever tough choices are required, Republicans want working families and children to make the sacrifice? Why not keep our children fed and families healthy and instead work with Democrats to ensure the wealthy pay their fair share of taxes? There's also the military budget. Arrington's proposed cuts, $780 billion in cuts, don't include one penny out of the military budget. Surprise, surprise. Well. Okay, back to your calls. It is Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann program. We'll pick up your phone calls in just a moment on the other side of this break. Taking back the mainstream media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. We're right here. We'll be right back with you.
This is the Thom Hartmann program.
And it's the home of the political revolution. Stay with us. And welcome back. Mark in San Jose. Hey, Mark, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I think that Kamala Harris and should be, because then, I was hoping to talk to Tom about...
You are on the air, Mark. What are you trying to say?
Well, I was hoping to talk to Tom about Kamala, our VP. I think Biden should resign. It'll wet their pants, and then Kamala can be an incumbent.
Oh, okay. All right. It doesn't make any sense to me. Paul in Ambler, Pennsylvania. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I wanted to bring to everyone's attention something that I had just became aware about with Google and one of their services, Google Translate, in particular to Twitter. There was an article about how this affected the people in Ukraine, especially during the very beginning of the war. What happens, just to give people some background, Twitter offers translation, and they use the Google translation program to do that, and it's kind of built into Twitter. Mm-hmm. I guess about 2 or 3 years ago, the Google changed the way that they created a translation program, and they switched from something that was like more statistically based, I guess, just like brute figuring out how to recognize a pattern and translate something, to something that's called like a neural net based, something based on how the human brain works, in addition with artificial intelligence, so that it could learn and accumulate its learning and knowledge and just keep expanding its ability to accurately translate.
Right.
So what happened was the translations got a little bit better, but more importantly, what Twitter did was they cut out the one step of requiring you to request for a translation. So in Europe, when a Ukrainian or when anybody sent anything out in their language, on your Twitter account, you automatically got the message in your language. So you didn't have to wait or wonder, like, well,
I've
what
seen
the
a
heck
lot of
is this?
Ukrainian tweets in Ukrainian. You know, there's a little thing down at the bottom that says
sure
translate.
They do that, but I think but I think this is something peculiar to Europe.
Okay.
I think what they were saying in the article, because obviously
So
you've got
we
so many
have 25
languages
seconds
there.
here. So what's the downside of this? Is it that
Well,
it's
that's
translating
just it.
inaccurately?
I think it's an upside. It's more accurate because they switched from the statistical model
Oh, so
to
this is good news about Twitter.
neural net model. But that's really not the key thing. The key thing is, I think, that they automatically give you a foreign language in your language. So you don't, it'll say, oh, this is from Ukraine, this is from, whatever, Yuri and Kyiv. But you right away get the information. A lot of people might not pay any attention to stuff because it's in gobbledygook. They might not see, like, Russian tanks blowing up people in Kyiv. Well, that would get my attention a lot quicker than, God knows what, and then I have to push the translation button.
Yeah, I get it. Paul, thank you for the call. I didn't know all those details. Thank you. We'll be right back. 21 minutes past the hour. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. On the air, call 9, period. Okay, welcome back. Did I say that on the air? Yes, I did. Okay, sorry about texting my daughter, who might be joining me on my trip to Michigan. Anyhow, it's Anything Goes Friday, picking up your calls. Keno in Lakeland, Florida. Hey, Keno, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Just real quick, I want to talk about the French people. And now, last week I talked about, for a master's degree research paper, I came to a hypothesis that 80% of the population do not have the mental ability to perceive future problems and dangers in the future. And right now, the president of France, Macron, wants to change the retirement age from 62 to 64, and close 70% of the people the polls indicate just cannot see the danger. Now, the question is it true or not that France has a financial problem? But Macron is trying to be a leader and say, we make a little bit of a sacrifice, people, for the good of the future, and they're resisting him no end. Now, does that not possibly prove my hypothesis that 80% of the population cannot see the future? And in the future, I want to talk with you about possible scenarios of civilizational collapse. I'm reading Paul Ehrlich's book right now, but right now, if 80% of the people cannot see future dangers, isn't that a problem for a democracy to make the changes that need to be made to adapt
it would
to
be
the coming collapse?
if I think you're extrapolating from what's going on in France. I think you're drawing a conclusion that's not justified. What's going on in France, if my reading of it is correct, and we probably should get our Cole Stangler on, and we've got a buddy in France who lives there and is a reporter for Al Jazeera, and he comes on our show from time to time, and he could tell us what's going on. But my understanding of it is that Macron is a neoliberal. He's if he was in the United States right now, he'd be kind of a Mitt Romney Republican. And what he's trying to do is avoid raising taxes on rich people in France. The problem that they're having is that their equivalent of our Social Security system is running low on cash. And he has a choice. He can raise taxes, and it won't be a huge tax increase. My understanding is it would be a 5 or 10% increase over what they're currently paying, which might end up being actually an additional 2 or 3 or 4%. He could raise taxes on rich people, or he could cut retirement benefits. And he's choosing to cut retirement benefits. And the people are really seriously pissed about it. And, so I get it. But,
Tom, let me ask this. In the future, in a democracy, to make sacrifices for needed changes to avoid collapse of civilization, might it be necessary to ask people to make sacrifices? And if 80% of people
but this is not the sacrifice they need to make.
Problem?
The sacrifice they might need to make to avoid civilizational collapse would be the sacrifices that have to do with climate change. That's where your genuine civilizational collapse threat exists. Arguably, there's one around nuclear war as well, but I think, frankly, the biggest change is that, climate change is going to produce disasters. Keno, there is speculation. There was a piece in one of the science journals I read day before yesterday that the earthquake in Turkey might have been. Now it's kind of just like we're expecting the big one here in the Pacific Northwest. It's going to happen eventually, right? And the eventually happened to Turkey this week. But one of the things that's going on is that up in the mountains, where there used to be glaciers that weighed hundreds of millions of tons, these glaciers have melted. And the same thing is happening in Greenland. I mean, Greenland, the surface of Greenland, the landmass is actually lifted out of the ocean by several inches over the last couple of years because the glaciers are melting into the ocean and that weight is not holding it down. Well, when you have land masses where you've got hundreds of millions, in some cases billions of pounds of weight, going away from those land masses or being transferred to the ocean, and now you've got weight redistributed around the planet, that increases tectonic activity. The plates moving against each other and volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. And so climate change is actually driving some earthquakes. I mean, this is known now. So, I think that the challenge is not whether you can retire at 62. The challenge is, how rapidly are we going to transition toward green power? And what's that going to cost and those kind of things. Keno, I got to run, but thank you for the call. It is 27 minutes past the hour. It's Anything Goes Friday. Back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be right back. 27 minutes past the hour. It's the place where despair is not an option. Hey, it's $5 Friday. You know what that is, right? There's two ways that people support free speech TV. One is by contributing just, a one-off donation. Call up 877-378-8669 and say, I'd like to contribute $100. Here's my credit card number. Just, ding the credit card and keep up the great work. And by the way, this is my favorite show, or, whatever. You have those kind of conversations. That's one way to contribute to Free Speech TV, is the one-off gifts. And we really appreciate those. Free Speech TV, or I should say really appreciates them. I'm speaking on their behalf. It's important, and particularly during our pledge drives, those one-off gifts are actually the main driver of our reaching our goals, which is why we do those pledge drives. But the second way that people contribute to Free Speech TV is the one that today is all about, that $5 Friday is all about. And that's the people who make a regular sustaining contribution. And what we're asking for today on $5 Friday is $5 a month. If you would just contribute $5 a month, that, if I'm doing my math right, is $60 a year, but it's spread out over the months. You call them up and tell them your favorite show and give them your credit card, and they will then every month ding your card for $5. And, for as long as you say, you can say do it for a year or just do it until I tell you to stop. And the benefit of that to you, first of all, is that, $5 a month is a lot easier than $60, one-off. But secondly, it helps Free Speech TV. I mean, one of the big challenges when you're running a nonprofit organization, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, is knowing what your cash flow is going to be like. If you're running an organization that depends on donations, you just never know. I mean, all kinds of things affect donations. First of all, some people just stop giving, or they die, or they go away, or they move out of state, or they change, whatever. Secondly, you've got other things that compete with donations. This is a real challenge for Free Speech TV in particular, because so much of our message is essentially political, or it's about politics, and politics has its own unique calendar. So, every 2 years you've got an election, and every 4 years you've got a presidential election. And leading up to those elections, you have primary elections. And during those primaries and during the general elections, there's just this massive outpouring of politicians begging for money. And so what happens to Free Speech TV and a lot of other charities and a lot of other nonprofits, of course, is that during those periods of time, donations go way down because people are giving to their favorite politician instead of to Free Speech TV. So the benefit, through this of the $5 Friday, of the $5 contributions, is that those wild swings, after the election, donations go up because you don't have politicians begging for money. Before the next election, donations go down. To even out those swings, we get as many people as we can to say, yes, I'll give you $5 a month, or if you could afford more, that's fine. Nobody's going to stop you to say, make it $10. Or make it $25, or, I had a really good year, make it $100 a month, whatever you can do. But what that does is it evens out those wild cash flow swings that are just the bane of the existence of anybody who works in the nonprofit field. So $5 Friday, and by the way, a lot of people have answered this call. 43% of free speech donors in 2022. Now, it's not 43% of the revenue, that's 43% of the people. It's a smaller portion of the revenue. 43% of the revenue that Free Speech TV took in 2022 was from people making these regular sustaining contributions. Typically the $5 a month. So these are change makers helping to create a better world. And you can do it. You can be one of the change makers to help make a better world by simply giving $5 a month or whatever you can afford to help transform our society. By the way, the first 5 people at the beginning of every half hour who start a new monthly donation or increase their monthly donation, if you're already giving $5 a month, you can call up and say, hey, jack that up to 10. The first 5 people every half hour will receive a Free Speech TV mystery box in the mail. No, I don't know what's in it. It's a mystery. That's the whole point of mystery boxes. So help out Free Speech TV. This is such an important venue, this television. We are literally the only genuinely progressive television network out there. We're certainly the only non-commercial progressive television network in America. We have a footprint all across the country. We're available on Dish, on Direct, on Hulu, actually I'm not sure about Hulu, on Roku, on Apple TV. I mean, Free Speech TV is all over the place. It's easy to find. Please help us with that, by the way, and tell your friends about Free Speech TV, tell your relatives, put it at the end of your emails as your signature. By the way, be sure to watch Free Speech TV. There's a lot of ways to find it. And of course, it's on the internet at freespeech.org. You can watch my program and all the other great programs on Free Speech TV every day. But the bottom line is, it's Friday. It's Free Speech TV, it's $5 Friday for Free Speech TV. And you can call now, 877-378-8669, and make your $5 gift and become one of the sustaining donors to this extraordinary network. So please, call now. You're the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. One of the things that has always baffled me is why, after the Mueller report after the Mueller investigation found that there were 10 explicit prosecutable cases of Donald Trump committing violations of the law by obstructing justice, that when Merrick Garland came into office, he chose to ignore those. And now I think the statute of limitations has run out on them. I believe it was a 5-year statute of limitations. He had that first year, he could have prosecuted those. Why? Why is it that on October 30th, 2016, Harry Reid, then the head of the Senate Democrats and of the Senate, wrote a letter to Jim Comey saying it's clear that you have in your possession information about the connection between Trump and Russia and are refusing to release it. Yet you rushed out this information that you were going to investigate Hillary Clinton, and there was no there. Why is this? There's a video with the entire letter from Harry Reid over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. And welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls. Patrick in East Lansing, Michigan. Hey, Patrick, what's up?
Oh, hey, Tom. I wanted to comment on the State of the Union and DeSantis saying in his video that he wants to eliminate Social Security. But, I was kind of taken aback because my daughter got her first paycheck in high school at her first job, and they were taking so much out for Social Security and withholding. It was just shocking to her. So I had to tell her the story about how Reagan cut taxes on the wealthy in 81, biggest tax cut in 70 years for the wealthy. And that cut like 3% of our revenue for the federal government. And then they proceeded to raise withholding taxes on working people, middle-class taxes, to make up exactly the tax cuts on the rich.
Yep.
So I had to have...
It wasn't even exactly, actually, because they ended up deficit spending anyway.
Yeah, Justin Fox on Bloomberg traces it out, and the 7 tax increases went to the middle class, and it made up the 2.9% of revenue losses. But... then we're sitting there watching TV, and Susie Orman is telling us how to save for retirement. And it's a joke because she says if you save $5,000 a year at age 22, you get $1 million when you retire. But if you start at 32, you end up with $500,000. And so we got 40% of our Americans who can't retire without totally relying on Social Security. Right. Stagnant wages, low wages, the high taxes we just talked about, and all the debt, the student debt, the auto debt, that whatever. So basically, the young kids paying in their 20s who can't save or loaded up with debt are staring at these taxes. And they know they're being told there won't be any Social Security, and they see their parents and older people who can't retire into the good life. So I'm sitting here thinking, this is completely broken, and there's got to be a simple solution. And the solution I'd offer to you and to Joe Biden, and that we should all be saying all the time, every week, is to raise the cap on income that's subject to tax. And the reason is, and I looked it up while I was waiting for this call to the Congressional Research Service from December of 2021, and I was kind of shocked. It used to be 90% of earnings were taxed. It's down to 83%. If we just get it to 90% by raising the cap from 147,000, guess what? We make Social Security actually able to fund all of its trust fund debts for 35 years.
Right, which is essentially forever in budget speak. Yeah.
But there's one other thing I have to say, and this is simple, okay? I know Joe Biden, I worked in Delaware when he was advocating raising the interest rates on credit cards. He advocated stripping out protections for student loan debt, so we have debt zombies.
Oh, I know. The 2005.
Okay, so...
Yeah, go ahead.
So, but there was Mother Jones did a whole article on the 12 things he gave the banks. Get rid of Glass-Steagall, set up the financial crisis, takes away our wealth and our homes. Right. But here's what I say. I accept that Joe Biden can become a different politician. We have to tell Joe Biden he supported the wrong cap, which is raising the cap to bleed us so we'd retire into poverty. And because of that, he needs to say, raise the cap. And he didn't say it at State of the Union. Instead, he's got 25 years, look it up, of supporting cuts in Social Security benefits, reducing COLA, raising retirement age. He was all down with Simpson Bowles. John Kerry was, Al Gore, Hillary Clinton.
He was a creature of the banks. I mean, Delaware is the headquarters of a bunch of the largest banks in the country, and he was a creature of the banks for years and years and years. But I really believe he's left that behind. I agree,
but he's not saying raise the cap. And I would say you need to say it, and it is the one-size-fits-all answer. Yeah. And it gets the donor class to pay their fair share.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm completely with you, Patrick. Patrick, thank you. David in Woodland Hills, California. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Thank you, Guru. I have a quick statement and then a question. Joe Biden's speech was a grand slam by America's granddad, and I would hope that this would help to usher back in the reverence for elders' wisdom that we used to have. And my question is, I've read that the English healthcare system is in a bit of a crisis, and the Republicans will use this to trash universal healthcare. My question is, what is the problem and what is the solution?
In the UK?
Yeah, their healthcare
their national healthcare system. You know, they have not had a liberal government in a long, long time, and all these conservatives come in, and what they do is they cut funding to the National Health Service. They're taking big bucks from, in many cases, American insurance companies who have a footprint in the UK, and American hospital groups, who are moving all over to Europe, and now that you also have some large European private hospital groups. And the conservatives and Rishi Sunak, if I'm remembering his name correctly, is no different than Maggie Thatcher and the rest of them, Boris Johnson. They're all gung ho to privatize the National Health Service, and so it's been the death of 1,000 paper cuts, basically, or being pecked to death by baby ducks. Or pick your crummy metaphor. That's what's been going on in the UK.
Their equivalent of health Medicare Advantage.
No, the National Health Service is their equivalent of Medicare, and it's their equivalent of the
conservatives are doing. I mean, what the conservatives are doing is privatizing it like Medicare Advantage.
They're trying to, yes, absolutely, yes. And they want to expand the private programs, outside of the National Health Service. They started out by saying, okay, you can go outside this system if you're wealthy and you pay, privately. And then they expanded insurance, allowed insurance to participate in that. And now they want to extend it to basically everybody. Because fact check this on me, because I'm not 100% confident that what I'm telling you is 100% accurate, but it's probably at least 90% accurate. There was a fascinating, by the way, apropos of that, there was a study that was reported last night on Chris Hayes' show that the conservative podcasts, specifically Steve Bannon's podcast, was 11 times more likely to provide people with misinformation than progressive podcasts. I thought that was fascinating. I need to look it up and see if I'm included in the progressive podcast. But in any case, that's how it's being played out in the UK, as far as I know, and it's a tragedy, because the National Health Service there, the NHS is it was historically the kind of the crown jewel of the United Kingdom. So that's what's going on. David, thank you for the call. Sam in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Hey, Sam, what's up?
How you doing, Professor?
Good.
To you and your family out there.
Yeah.
There's some things I would like to ask you, because I really don't know, and I'm confused with Ron DeSantis and what's going on in Florida. He's taken away Black history. He's taken away gays' rights. He's taken away women's rights and other things. Shouldn't this be going to the Supreme Court, or the Black Caucus should step in to find out why is he stopping the teaching of Black history? Also, to me,
well, before we move to the also, Sam, what would be the basis to take that to the Supreme Court? What unconstitutional action is DeSantis doing? It's not against the law to be a bigot.
It's like taking people's rights. It's just their rights. And
so you would say that he's taking away the rights of students to a good education? That's not in the U.S. Constitution. That's typically in state constitutions.
See, I don't know any of this. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, that would be probably the way to do it.
Also, Black history is really for African Americans to learn who they were, who they came from, and that's the teaching that we need. I get a lot of it from the Black Eagle and every day, and also I learned two people. Yes, I learned two people in elementary school. There was George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. Now, where why they didn't teach me Black history then. Okay, I'm just confused. I can't understand how this man could take rights. And you could tell me off the air, please.
No, okay. Thank you, Sam. I'm not sure that anything DeSantis is doing is a violation of the federal Constitution. And if anybody thinks that there is something he's doing that is federally unconstitutional, I'd love to hear it. I do think that he's violating the state constitution, which grants children a right to an education. Whether that would be positively adjudicated, whether the Florida Supreme Court, which is stacked with Republicans, would go along with that, I'm very, very skeptical. So I'm guessing that nobody's suing because they just don't think it would work. I would add, Sam, that while I think it's really important that Black kids have access to Black history to understand, where they came from and what the history of their people is, essentially. I hope that sounds, right to say it that way. I think white people need to know this too, to have some empathy for their Black brothers and sisters, and also we need to be teaching the history of Native Americans and Hispanic Americans and Asian Americans. I mean, we've got a bunch of groups in this country that are regularly put down or crapped on by white nationalists and white racists, and the people like Ron DeSantis, and frankly, all of them should have their histories taught in our schools, but particularly Black history. This is the one area that the Republicans are going after aggressively. It's wrong. It's just wrong.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Defending America from the weapons of mass deception. It's 46 minutes past the hour. Back with your calls. And welcome back. Victor in Grass Valley, California. Hey, Victor, what's on your mind today?
Well, since the Republicans want to have a policy against no more socialism, well, I think the Democrats need to pull the rug out from under the subsidies for the oil companies.
I agree.
So use it against them.
Yes.
Every time they pull one of these tactics, just go right after them.
They should introduce the No More Corporate Socialism and Corporate Welfare Bill into Congress.
Absolutely.
Yep. Pull the plug on these guys. I'm with you. Victor, thank you.
Okay,
go ahead.
I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
Now, you're a pilot.
I am.
Now, do you think you could fly like the jet that flew into the Pentagon?
Probably.
Maneuver that plane at all?
Yeah, I probably could. It's not that complicated, frankly. I mean, the complicated stuff happens when you encounter problems when you're flying. Flying an airplane is fairly straightforward stuff.
Yeah,
even a jet.
Well, because I just it just doesn't seem possible that the flight path that they said that was done. If you were hijacking a plane, you would just dive it into the Pentagon, not do the maneuvers they claim they did, which is impossible to flight that path.
Maybe. I think they have found the airplane pieces. There was, they do know that those dead people are missing. I realize that there's a whole kind of mini industry around, and Marjorie Taylor Greene has bought into this, that it was a missile that hit the Pentagon. It wasn't it was the airplane. It was.
Well, the video footage shows it wasn't big enough to be a plane.
No, it doesn't show that at all. That's just an artifact of a crummy camera. It actually was an airplane.
With that.
All right. Well, we're going to agree to disagree, right. Victor. Thanks. Phil in Brookings, South Dakota. Hey, Phil, what's on your mind today? Phil, watching us on Free Speech TV in Brookings, South Dakota. Going once. Going twice. Okay, let's try Lawrence in Berkeley. Hey, Lawrence, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi. First of all, I want to thank and approve of the guy in the first hour who said that the great wages and unions in the Eisenhower era and in the 60s were due to the Second World War. That the United States was functioning with essentially no competition and could sell anything at any prices. But I want to put this in a different perspective. Well, first of all, I want to thank him and thank you. I'm going by your health standards. But what happened is that the Second World War, the way to think of it is that the Second World War interrupted the normal cycle of capitalism, where you start fairly well off, and then, there are reforms like in the New Deal, which give more money to the poor and to the working class. But if the owners of capital and industry still own it, they will buy the government, and then the government will give them more benefits, give the rich more benefits, and the poor less, and then the rich will get even more. So but that was interrupted by the Second World War, and the normal cycle started again in the 70s when the rest of the world had enough to be competitive.
Yeah, that's one argument. If you actually look back at the history, you see that American exports only went up about 1.5% after World War II. We weren't exporting to the world. We were actually helping Germany and the rest of Europe build their own industries. Lawrence, thanks for the call. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So you don't think generally of community gardening and cancer and heart disease prevention in the same thought, in the same sentence. But sure enough, this was published in the journal Lancet Planetary Health, a study that was funded by the American Cancer Society, the first ever randomized control trial of the effects of community gardening. And what they did was they started a garden. This was in Denver. It was 291 non-gardening adults, average age 41. And they gave them half of the group. They gave them a garden plot and some seeds and seedlings and an introductory gardening course. And what they found was by the fall, that those people who were doing the gardening had increased their fiber consumption by 1.4 grams a day, 7%, which is substantial. And they believe that this will help them with everything from diabetes to certain cancers. It's absolutely a fascinating study. There's a whole video about it over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. At 51 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls. Patricia in Phoenix. Hey, Patricia, what's on your mind today?
Hang on a second. Yeah, you go for it. Hello?
Hello, Patricia. You're on the air.
Hi. Good day and good health.
Thank you.
I'm calling about the tax code and the categories and how inequitable they are. We always talk about the taxing the rich, but we never talk about the inequities under $500,000 in the tax code.
Oh, the people making between $100,000 a year and probably $600,000 or $700,000 a year are the ones who are really getting soaked because they're paying the full load. They're paying the 30 or 40 or 50%, state and federal combined income taxes. Once you get, above $1 million a year in income, you can move stuff around to the point that your income, but it depends on your circumstances of employment. But basically, lawyers and surgeons and doctors and whatnot, they're getting soaked. Absolutely.
I'm talking about the part where it jumps from 10% to 10 to 12, and then 12 to 20. What is it, 20 or 22? So there's no equity under 500,000 because of the tax rate jump. If it's good enough to raise it 2% here, why are you raising it now 10% in the next category?
Because we have a progressive income tax.
2%.
And also it's important to remember, Patricia, that even somebody making $1 million a year on their first, and these are not accurate numbers, but
right,
kind of for example, but on their first $10,000, they're only paying nothing. On their second $10,000 to $20,000 or $25,000 a year, they're paying the 5% or 10% or whatever it is. On their third $10,000 or $20,000, you get up to around $30,000, $40,000 a year. At each stage, that income is taxed at that level. So they don't start paying, the 37% tax rate until they get above these really, really high numbers. And it used to be that they didn't start paying the 91% tax rate until they started making over what would be in today's dollars about $1 million a year. Of course, Reagan did put an end to that. But that's called progressive taxation. That's how it's supposed to work.
I don't understand why the progression is unequal.
Because the theory is that low-income people cannot afford to pay as much in taxes, and higher-income people can afford to pay more in taxes. And the high-income people have benefited more from the government programs that allow business to function, that facilitate the function of business in the United States. And so high-income people using more of the resources of our country and benefiting more from the resources of our country should pay more into it. That's the rationale. Patricia, I need to move along. Norma in Montgomery. Hey, Norma, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Good. What's up?
Yeah. Okay. When it comes to democracy, there are two things that are absolutely mandatory to be able to have a functioning democracy. The first one is an educated, literate population. And when you destroy education or make education, particularly upper levels, impossible to acquire, you have a population that does not understand how your government works. The second thing is that people have to have enough money to be able to take care of themselves without working 80 hours a week. And this is where low wages are hurting us. Contract employers, they don't even pay the matching Social Security contribution, which will hurt us down the road. And a lot of people who are contract employees don't understand that they have to pay their federal and state taxes out of that and pay their portion of Social Security, unemployment, and workman's comp. They don't understand that this is their own responsibility because they're not educated to get it. But when you have people who earn enough money to where they're not spending every hour of the day working just to get by, then they have time to turn around and look and see what is going on and participate in the government and participate in whether or not what type of elections and what kind of people we're going to elect. But when you don't have educated people and you have people working too many hours, they are deprived of their rights just to be free enough to run for an office. They don't have time, they don't have the money, and they don't even know how.
Right.
And this is what is destroying our country from the inside out.
I think you're right.
And if they can't buy a house because they got outbid by a foreign investment, we have to put a stop to the sale of the United States.
I agree.
Because we're not going to own our country.
I agree. You and I have been singing this song for a long time, Norma. Hopefully soon politicians will start. California, there's a bill that was introduced in the California legislature yesterday to ban Chinese investors from buying land near military bases. I think it should go, statewide. Norma, I got to run, but thank you for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
$5 Friday. You know what that is, right? There's two ways that people support Free Speech TV. One is by contributing just, a one-off donation. Call up 877-378-8669 and say, I'd like to contribute $100. Here's my credit card number. Just, ding the credit card and keep up the great work. And by the way, this is my favorite show, or, whatever. You have those kind of conversations. That's one way to contribute to Free Speech TV, is the one-off gifts. And we really appreciate those. Free Speech TV, or I should say really appreciates them. I'm speaking on their behalf. It's important, and particularly during our pledge drives, those one-off gifts are actually the main driver of our reaching our goals, which is why we do those pledge drives. But the second way that people contribute to Free Speech TV is the one that today is all about, that $5 Friday is all about. And that's the people who make a regular sustaining contribution. And what we're asking for today on $5 Friday is $5 a month. If you would just contribute $5 a month, that, if I'm doing my math right, is $60 a year, but it's spread out over the months. You call them up and tell them your favorite show and give them your credit card, and they will then every month ding your card for $5, and for as long as you say. You can say do it for a year or just do it until I tell you to stop. And the benefit of that to you, first of all, is that $5 a month is a lot easier than $60, one-off. But secondly, it helps Free Speech TV. I mean, one of the big challenges when you're running a nonprofit organization, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, is knowing what your cash flow is going to be like. If you're running an organization that depends on donations, you just never know. I mean, all kinds of things affect donations. First of all, some people just stop giving, or they die, or they go away, or they move out of state, or they change, whatever. Secondly, you've got other things that compete with donations. This is a real challenge for Free Speech TV in particular, because so much of our message is essentially political, or it's about politics, and politics has its own unique calendar. So, every 2 years you've got an election, and every 4 years you've got a presidential election. And leading up to those elections, you have primary elections. And during those primaries and during the general elections, there's just this massive outpouring of, politicians begging for money. And so what happens to Free Speech TV and a lot of other charities and a lot of other nonprofits, of course, is that during those periods of time, donations go way down because people are giving to their favorite politician instead of to Free Speech TV. So the benefit, through this of the $5 Friday, of the $5 contributions, is that those wild swings, after the election, donations go up because you don't have politicians begging for money. Before the next election, donations go down. To even out those swings, we get as many people as we can to say, yes, I'll give you $5 a month, or if you could afford more, that's fine. Nobody's going to stop you to say, make it $10. Or make it $25, or, I had a really good year. Make it $100 a month. Whatever you can do. But what that does is it evens out those wild cash flow swings that are just the bane of the existence of anybody who works in the nonprofit field. So $5 Friday, and by the way, a lot of people have answered this call. 43% of free speech donors in 2022. Now, it's not 43% of the revenue. That's 43% of the people. It's a smaller portion of the revenue. 43% of the revenue that Free Speech TV took in 2022 was from people making these regular sustaining contributions. Typically the $5 a month. So these are change makers helping to create a better world. And you can do it. You can be one of the change makers to help make a better world by simply giving $5 a month or whatever you can afford to help transform our society. By the way, the first 5 people at the beginning of every half who start a new monthly donation or increase their monthly donation, if you're already giving $5 a month, you can call up and say, hey, jack that up to 10. The first 5 people every half hour will receive a Free Speech TV mystery box in the mail. No, I don't know what's in it. It's a mystery. That's the whole point of mystery boxes. So Help out Free Speech TV. This is such an important venue. This television. We are literally the only genuinely progressive television network out there. We're the only certainly the only non-commercial progressive television network in America. We have a footprint all across the country. We're available on Dish, on Direct, on Hulu, actually I'm not sure about Hulu, on Roku, on Apple TV. I mean, Free Speech TV is all over the place. It's easy to find. Please help us with that, by the way, and tell your friends about Free Speech TV, tell your relatives. Put it at the end of your emails as your signature. By the way, be sure to watch Free Speech TV. There's a lot of ways to find it. And of course, it's on the internet at freespeech.org. You can watch my program and all the other great programs on Free Speech TV every day. But the bottom line is, it's Friday. It's Free Speech TV, it's $5 Friday for Free Speech TV. And you can call now, 877-378-8669, and make your $5 gift and become one of the sustaining donors to this extraordinary network. So please, call now.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to the third hour of our program. It's Anything Goes Friday. I'll be picking up your calls in just a few moments, but a couple of quick stories I wanted to fly past you, put on your radar screen. The Brookings Institution, along with the Public Religion Research Institute, has released, this was day before yesterday, released a new poll on Christian nationalism in the United States. Now, to qualify as a Christian, and this is a survey of 6,000 Americans, so this is actually a statistically valid survey. It wasn't like, hey, let's call up 35 people and ask them what they think. And they asked people questions like these. If the U.S. moves away from our Christian foundations, we will not have a country anymore. Or being Christian is an important part of being truly American. Or God has called Christians to exercise dominion over all areas of American society. If you agreed with those statements, they called you a Christian nationalist. And what they found was that, and this is pretty amazing stuff, a lot of these numbers, but 10% of American adults completely or overwhelmingly agreed with those statements. An additional 19% agree, but not totally. So that's 29% of Americans basically saying that God has created Christians to exercise dominion over all areas of American society. Who are these people? Well, nearly 2/3 of white evangelical Protestants qualify, and which is a stunning 29% of Americans, many tens of millions of people. These Christian nationalists also make up the base of the Republican Party. Republicans are 4 times as likely as Democrats or independents to be adherents of Christian nationalism. Support is also inversely related to educational attainment. In other words, the more education you have, the less likely you are to claim that, Jesus put you in charge of America. The less education you have, the more likely you are to make that claim. Americans overall are much more likely to express a preference for the U.S. to be a nation made up of people belonging to a variety of religions. 73% of us don't like this, but adherents to Christian nationalism are 7 times as likely to agree with this statement, quote, "True patriots may have to resort to violence to save our country." Half of Christian nationalist adherents and nearly 4 in 10 sympathizers support the idea of an authoritarian leader. A stunning 83% of Christian nationalists think, quote, "God intended America to be a new promised land where white European Christians could create a society that could be an example to the rest of the world." End quote. More than 70% of adherents embraced replacement theory, this stuff that Tucker Carlson is peddling on Fox News, that Democrats and Jews are conspiring to have black people and brown people replace white people in the United States. Nearly a quarter harbor the anti-Semitic view that the Jews hold too many positions of power, and 44% of these people believe that Jews are more loyal to Israel than the United States. More than 65% think that Muslims should be banned, and almost 70% believe that, quote, the husband is the head of the household in a truly Christian family and his wife must submit to his leadership. These people are freaks. It's just, wow. All righty. Now, last week, or maybe it was early this week, I think it was last weekend, we had this 150-car train derailment in Ohio where the train cars burst into flames, 100-foot flames going up into the sky. They had to evacuate large chunks of the towns around them. This was the Norfolk Southern line. And it turns out that the reason that this train was not even labeled high hazard flammable material had to do with lobbying during the Trump administration. In 2014, the Obama administration had put into place improved safety regulations. I'm reading from a piece by David Sirota over at levernews.com, and he writes, and I quote, "Then came 2017. After rail industry donors delivered more than $6 million to GOP campaigns, the Trump administration, backed by rail lobbyists and Senate Republicans, rescinded part of Obama's rule aimed at making better braking systems widespread on the nation's rails. Specifically, regulators killed provisions requiring rail cars carrying hazardous flammable material to be equipped with electronic braking systems that stop trains more quickly than the old-fashioned air brakes." Norfolk Southern had actually previously bragged about the electronic braking system, saying that it had, quote, the potential to reduce train stopping distances by as much as 60% over conventional air brake systems. But it cost a little more money, so they spent $6 million electing Republicans, and Donald Trump said, it's all good, no problem. And, it's a miracle that people didn't die in this. I mean, it's just, had it happened in a city center, it would have been insanely deadly. The third story I wanted to share with you, and then I'll get to your calls, is about this just gross violation of human rights in Saudi Arabia. An American man, his name was Saad Alami. He's 72 years old. He and his son live in the United States. They're both U.S. citizens. He's lived here since the 1970s. He moved here from Saudi Arabia and became a naturalized U.S. citizen. So he's a U.S. citizen. His son is a full American. Well, I mean, they're both full American citizens. You understand what I'm saying? He tweeted 14 tweets over the course of a couple of years while he was living in the United States that were critical of the Saudi regime, specifically around the Khashoggi killing, saying that Mohammed bin Salman should be held to account for it, and criticizing the Saudis for being unable to protect their borders from rocket fire by the Iranian Houthi rebels in Yemen. And he also agreed with naming a D.C. street after Khashoggi. So he had some land that his family owned in Saudi Arabia, and apparently whoever owned it died, and so he went to Saudi Arabia to deal with the, selling the land, getting rid of that land. And they arrested him and prosecuted him for defaming the emperor of Saudi Arabia, the despot, Mohammed bin Salman. And he was sentenced to 16 years in prison for tweeting. So the Biden administration reached out and said, hey, can you review this? This seems excessive. And so they reviewed it, and they raised it from 16 years to 19 years. Keep in mind, the guy's 72 years old. He has lost 80 pounds since he was put in the Saudi prison. He's in a hellhole of a prison. And his son says basically what Saudi Arabia has done, what Mohammed bin Salman has done, is give the middle finger to Joe Biden and the United States. I agree with that assessment. This is awful. This is wrong. This should not be going on. So, alrighty. So let's pick up your phone calls here on Anything Goes Friday. Larry in Los Angeles. Hey, Larry. How's our numbers guy today?
Hey. Yeah, I was thinking about all the times that I've called your program and talks about how many Republicans have given us recessions. And like I said, it's 10 out of the last 11. Your listeners, if they want to check my numbers, they could go to the NBER website. That's the National Bureau of Economic Research. They're the only entity in America that can identify when a recession starts and ends. Mm-hmm. And they have a full record going all the way back to the 1800s of where and when every recession took place. Wow. All you have to do is just add that to your knowledge of when Republicans and Democrats were in the White House.
Is that nber.gov?
NBER. You can just do NBER and search, and you'll get the National Bureau of Economic Research.
Great.
And so you match those up with Republicans and Democrats being in the White House, and you'll get that number of 10 out of the last 11. And you'll also get the last 126 years, every Republican president in the history who's ever been in the White House has given us a recession in his first term. Wow. And you have to do the work because the NBER does not do it for you. You have to match the presidents with the times.
Does this go literally all the way back to Abe Lincoln?
This goes all the way back to McKinley.
McKinley.
He was the
1896.
He died in his second. Yeah.
Yeah, he died in 1901. Yeah.
Term. Right, and then Roosevelt took over, and he's a one-term president, even though people think he had 2 terms.
Teddy.
That's because he finished most of McKinley's second term.
Right.
And he tried to run again, and Taft beat him.
Yeah.
And but it might not have been Taft, but one of those.
No, it was William Howard Taft replaced him. Yeah. In 1908.
And so Taft had 2 recessions. He had 2 recessions in one term, and so when you're looking at this, you will realize just how detrimental Republicans are. That's the reason why, right up until 2016, Republicans, in having all these recessions, had seen 0 points added to the markets. In all 3 major markets, they had seen no points added. It was only when the current Fed chair decided he wanted to try to put some points on the books for the Republicans. So he spent something like $5 trillion to help Donald Trump try to get a second term.
Right.
It's that $5 trillion that allowed Donald Trump to see roughly, I think it was 1,100 points in the Dow. That went up that high only because over the last 12 years, the Federal Reserve has spent $9 trillion trying to help Republicans.
Right, specifically Jerome Powell.
Right, and he has since spent almost $1 trillion. Buying those assets back, meaning that when you couple that up with the Fed rate hikes that Biden is seeing, those are 2 very powerful tools that he's using to actually cause the stock market stagnate right now.
So Jerome Powell goosed the economy for Trump, and he's crushing the economy for Biden.
Doing the exact opposite policies.
Yeah.
So he increasing the Fed rate for Biden, and he's selling stocks. And I've been trying to find out just what stocks he's selling. I suspect it's in the tech sector because the tech sector right now is kind of going down. And that same sector is the sector that he bought and caused Donald Trump to see 11,000 points added. Huh. He's changed his policy depending on who's president of the United States.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. Larry, thank you. You always bring it. You should write a book or start a Substack newsletter. You have such great information. Larry, thank you very much. And if you ever decide to do either of those 2 things, let me know. I'll share with you whatever I can to help you. It's 18 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be right back with your calls on Anything Goes Friday right after this. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where smart people get their news. And welcome back. Mike in Lomita, California. Hey, Mike, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Are we so lucky to have Larry?
Yeah.
He is great.
Yeah, Larry is brilliant.
However, maybe not quite so brilliant. I have a little problem with the survey you were quoting a few minutes ago. And one problem I see is that the use of the word Christian is left pretty wide open.
Well, these are people who identify themselves as Christian. It doesn't mean that they are. I don't think Jesus would recognize any of them, frankly.
However, I looked up the OED definition, informal, and it defines Christian as having qualities associated with Christians, e.g., kindness. And since this is a dictionary and it's drawn from actual usage, I suspect that a lot of people confronted with that question would have taken it that way. How someone with more education about the history of religion would consider that Christians could be also considered particularly vindictive and cruel, given the numbers of centuries that they spent burning each other at the stake for doctrinal differences.
Yep.
Be that as it may, earlier in the week you had an item in about women in the Church of England was about whether they should be bishops.
No, there is a movement in the Church of England right now to change some of their liturgy, and their perspective, essentially, to make God gender neutral. You know, the question is, why does God have to be a man? Can't God be an it or a them?
Well, I had the final authority on that.
Okay.
In the Anglican Church, they have every Mass, they have three essential parts. One is the Old Testament, prophets and psalm and all that sort of business, and the appropriate prayer for that theme. Then there is the words of Jesus of Nazareth himself, and gospel. And the third part is the letter or epistle from St. Paul.
Right.
And I am quoting his letter to the Galatians, chapter 3, verse 28. There is neither Jew nor Greek, neither bound nor free, neither male nor female.
Right, in heaven.
For ye all are one in Christ Jesus. No, on this earth, by virtue of having been baptized.
Oh, okay.
And
we had a caller yesterday who quoted that, who said that it was in the context of going to heaven. I didn't realize that it was, once you're baptized, you're neither Jew nor Gentile, free nor slave, etc., man nor woman.
Right.
Interesting.
So the first woman priest was actually became blanking on the word for what it is, but she became a priest in 1944, and that was the Hong Kong branch of the church, and then 94.
When did they include neither Jew nor Gentile, neither man nor woman? When did they include that in the liturgy? Did it precede that?
Well, it was in the liturgy from whenever St. Paul wrote it. I mean, all his letters
it's been in the Bible since Paul wrote it. But when did the Anglican Church say this is the thing we recite every week?
Well, that's been part of the Mass for forever.
Oh,
so
really?
They separated from the Roman Church.
Yeah, so that would
way back.
Yeah,
that was centuries before that.
Yeah, I got it. Fascinating. Mike, thank you. Thanks for the Anglican history. I had no idea, not being a member of the Anglican Church. I was raised Methodist. We'll be right back. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. And welcome back. 23 minutes past the hour. Bill in Clifton, New Jersey. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I thinking more and more that China is more of an existential threat because I'm sure President Xi slapped his forehead every time Biden said "Made in America," because that means the end of trade with them.
Yeah.
And they have no reason to be nice.
Well, beyond that, my concern is that Xi seems to be going down the path that so many people who believe their own BS.
Dictator.
Yeah, who become, the Joseph Stalin, Napoleon, Adolf Hitler. It seems that he's starting to believe his own BS, and that's a very dangerous thing. They shouldn't have given him another term.
Right, and on the other hand, in Turkey, we're giving them all this aid now. You think it might make them want to let Sweden and Finland into NATO?
That's a good question.
Or help?
They're not blocking Finland.
I mean,
they're only blocking Sweden.
Because they said bad things?
I beg your pardon?
Because they said bad things or something?
What happened was there was a Quran was burned in, I believe it was in Stockholm, by their equivalent of Judge Moore. They're one of these right-wing fundamentalists who's yelling and screaming about Islam as a satanic religion, quack quack. And because they have freedom of speech in Sweden, they didn't stop him, they didn't arrest him, they didn't imprison him. They did condemn him. I mean, the government officially condemned him, but he was not imprisoned, and so Turkey is protesting that. And he did it outside the Turkish embassy.
Oh, I see. Well, I guess that's enough for a dictator to get upset.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it's interesting. And like I said, China is kind of scary now, all the stuff they're doing, and they're watching what's going on in Ukraine. And
I would hope that we could build a stronger relationship with China. I mean, notwithstanding my comments about Xi just a moment ago, if China and Russia hook up, then we're back to the axis. We're back to a bipolar world, and that's a very, very dangerous place to be. It's much better to have a multipolar world.
Yeah, but you have to get back to these presidents for life, or what they call dictators. They have to go before anything will change.
Yeah, this is a problem. This.
Right. And Tom?
Mm-hmm.
Tom? Hello?
I'm still here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I remember you talking long ago about the Iroquois nation and how it was part matriarchal, and the women chose when to go to war. But women also chose who became chief.
That's correct.
Because they had grown up with that guy, and Trump would have never, ever, that's why they had 500 years of peace.
Yeah.
Because they elected good leaders.
Yeah, only women could vote, basically, in at least 5 of the 6 Iroquois nations. There's going to be a lot of information about that in my next book, The Hidden History of American Democracy, which is available for pre-order right now. Shameless plug. But
I'm ready.
But it's great stuff. I've spent the last year doing a deep dive into this, particularly into Ben Franklin. I mean, he was the guy who really brought the Indians into the Constitution and everything else. Bill, I got to run, but thank you for the call. It's good to hear from you. I appreciate it. We'll be back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Friday on the other side of this break here at the bottom of the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, your media support group for We the People.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And the White House just announced that Joe Biden is going to travel to Poland before the one-year anniversary of the invasion, which is February 24th, so in the next little bit here. Hey, it's $5 Friday. You know what that is, right? There's 2 ways that people support Free Speech TV. One is by contributing just, a one-off donation. Call up 877-378-8669 and say, I'd like to contribute $100. Here's my credit card number. Just, ding the credit card and keep up the great work. And by the way, this is my favorite show, or, whatever. You have those kind of conversations. That's one way to contribute to Free Speech TV, is the one-off gifts. And we really appreciate those. Free Speech TV, or I should say really appreciates them. I'm speaking on their behalf. It's important, and particularly during our pledge drives, those one-off gifts are actually the main driver of our reaching our goals, which is why we do those pledge drives. But the second way that people contribute to Free Speech TV is the one that today is all about, that $5 Friday is all about. And that's the people who make a regular sustaining contribution. And what we're asking for today on $5 Friday is $5 a month. If you would just contribute $5 a month, that, if I'm doing my math right, is $60 a year, but it's spread out over the months. You call them up and tell them your favorite show and give them your credit card, and they will then every month ding your card for $5. And, for as long as you say, you can say do it for a year or just do it until I tell you to stop. And the benefit of that to you, first of all, is that, $5 a month is a lot easier than $60, one-off. But secondly, it helps Free Speech TV. I mean, one of the big challenges when you're running a nonprofit organization, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, is knowing what your cash flow is going to be like. If you're running an organization that depends on donations, you just never know. I mean, all kinds of things affect donations. First of all, some people just stop giving, or they die, or they go away, or they move out of state, or they change, whatever. Secondly, you've got other things that compete with donations. This is a real challenge for Free Speech TV in particular, because so much of our message is essentially political, or it's about politics, and politics has its own unique calendar. So, every 2 years you've got an election, and every 4 years you've got a presidential election, and leading up to those elections you have primary elections, and during those primaries and during the general elections there's just this massive outpouring of politicians begging for money. And so what happens to Free Speech TV and a lot of other charities and a lot of other nonprofits, of course, is that during those periods of time, donations go way down because people are giving to their favorite politician instead of to Free Speech TV. So the benefit, through this of the $5 Friday, of the $5 contributions, is that those wild swings, after the election, donations go up because you don't have politicians begging for money. Before the next election, donations go down. To even out those swings, we get as many people as we can to say, yes, I'll give you $5 a month, or if you could afford more, that's fine. Nobody's going to stop you to say, make it $10 or make it $25 or, I had a really good year, make it $100 a month, whatever you can do. But what that does is it evens out those wild cash flow swings that are just the bane of the existence of anybody who works in the nonprofit field. So $5 Friday, and by the way, a lot of people have answered this call. 43% of free speech donors in 2022. Now, it's not 43% of the revenue, that's 43% of the people. It's a smaller portion of the revenue. 43% of the revenue that Free Speech TV took in 2022 was from people making these regular sustaining contributions. Typically the $5 a month. So these are change makers helping to create a better world. And you can do it. You can be one of the change makers to help make a better world by simply giving $5 a month or whatever you can afford to help transform our society. By the way, the first 5 people at the beginning of every half hour who start a new monthly donation or increase their monthly donation, if you're already giving $5 a month, you can call up and say, hey, jack that up to 10. The first 5 people every half hour will receive a Free Speech TV mystery box in the mail. No, I don't know what's in it. It's a mystery. That's the whole point of mystery boxes. So help out Free Speech TV. This is such an important venue, this television. We are literally the only genuinely progressive television network out there. We're certainly the only non-commercial progressive television network in America. We have a footprint all across the country. We're available on Dish, on Direct, on Hulu, actually I'm not sure about Hulu, on Roku, on Apple TV. I mean, Free Speech TV is all over the place. It's easy to find. Please help us with that, by the way, and tell your friends about Free Speech TV, tell your relatives, put it at the end of your emails as your signature. By the way, be sure to watch Free Speech TV. There's a lot of ways to find it. And of course, it's on the internet at freespeech.org. You can watch my program and all the other great programs on Free Speech TV every day. But the bottom line is, it's Friday. It's Free Speech TV, it's $5 Friday for Free Speech TV. And you can call now, 877-378-8669, and make your $5 gift and become one of the sustaining donors to this extraordinary network. So please, call now. So everybody knows that George Santos is from a district that Joe Biden won by 16 points, New York's 3rd district, although there was a kind of a gerrymandering, or excuse me, a reapportionment thing that happened there. But it's generally a Democratic district, and if Santos falls, there's probably going to be a Democratic replacement. But that's just the beginning of the story. David Vallejo in California's 22nd district, for example, represents a district that Biden carried by 16 points. Young Kim in California's 40th, Biden carried by 15 points. Mike Garcia in California's 27th, Biden carried by 18 points. Biden carried by 11 points, Oregon's 5th, Lori Chavez DeRemer. Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania's 1st, Biden carried it by 14 points. I've got a whole video that lists all of these. There's 18 of them that should be easy pickups for the Democrats in 2024. It's over at ThomHartmann.com. Check it out. 35 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Laura in Marion, Iowa. Hey, Laura, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I wanted to talk just a little bit about the situation here in Iowa. I have a little bit of a good news story and then a question. So, as you're aware, we've taken kind of a turn to the red, and we're trying to figure out best ways to get our rural voters more aware of message. So I have been talking, I've been a Democratic activist for a long time. So I've been talking to some of the Iowa Democratic Party leadership, and I think I finally have them listening to me about the possibility of radio. When I sent them that article you shared about Hispanic radio, it's causing them to listen. So I think maybe they're going to move forward on that. So my next initiative is to consider how can I get them to put the free speech links into their various websites or in their newsletters and those kinds of things. And I wanted to ask, do we have to have any approvals or anything to connect Free Speech TV to our various websites or newsletters, or can we just do that?
You can just do it, and Free Speech will be TV will be very happy. And the best thing that you could do in Iowa is if there are wealthy Democratic business people in Iowa who are looking for an investment that will probably take a year or two to turn a profit, but over time it will. Then will have a consequential, a significant and substantial impact on the politics of the state. Encourage them to buy radio stations, and particularly some of the larger ones that might blow a signal across the whole state.
Yeah, and I have been pursuing that a little bit with them. So one of the dynamics that has really changed here this year, with the first in the nation caucus status going away, this is really going to affect our ability to fund candidates and things, because the presidential candidates used to give money for like staff people and offices and for things like that. But our new Democratic Party chair, who was just elected, her time is really going to be focused on fundraising, so they're going to hit up those big donors to help fund some things. But I will keep singing this song about get us on the radio. I forwarded those articles also about how Wisconsin built their radio station. And now I'm going to go on this free speech pitch to try and get them to put them on our various websites and newsletters.
Great.
So we're trying, but it's going to be a heavy lift here.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's, we are at very much Johnny-come-latelys here. The Republicans started building a right-wing radio infrastructure in the mid-1980s. Limbaugh went on the air in 88, I think, 87 or 88. And that, which with millions of dollars behind him and launched on about the same number of stations as Air America launched on, but they just kept growing and growing and kept pouring money into it. We really need to do it. So, Laura, good luck. Keep us up to date, okay? Okay. Thanks a lot. Dion in Monroe, Louisiana. Hey, Dion, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
I'm well. What's up?
Okay. I wanted to disagree with you and another caller, but before I do my disagreement, I would like to say I'm glad Biden is president. I could not stomach another term of you-know-who.
Yeah.
He who shall not be named. What I disagree with is, Biden's redeemability because the American Rescue Plan didn't need to be cut up into two. He could have done better with that. He could have...
Actually, he couldn't. The challenge that he faced was Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. The original proposal they put forward was originally was $6 billion, then it went, or trillion, then it went down to $3 trillion, and they ended up with about $1 trillion.
Right.
But that was the result of Manchin and Sinema. That was not Joe Biden's idea. He wanted the $3 trillion.
I know that, right? I know, but I did not see Biden going on a tour of we need to get this bill passed as
he
one
met
package.
with them multiple times. I think he tried to bring some public pressure on them, but there's a certain point where you just you don't want to break your own party.
No, you don't want to break your own party, but I don't think that he has seen the error of his ways from his past votes.
Oh, I think
Biden is one of the most conservative Democrats.
He was. No.
Okay, maybe I'm missing something. Explain to me why you feel he isn't now.
Sure. Biden was one of the co-authors in 2005 of the bankruptcy reforms that made it impossible to get out of student debt with bankruptcy. And his whole argument was, people need to be responsible. Really what was going on was that much of Biden's political career had been financed by the big banks out of Delaware. He's now at the point in his career, I'm convinced, where he doesn't care. He doesn't need their money. He's president of the United States. He realizes that those policies are no longer popular. They were actually popular with a majority of Americans for a long time, and that was again a testimonial to the effectiveness of right-wing talk radio all across the country, and right-wing presence on television media as well, particularly Fox News. But it's clear to me that Biden has just abandoned all that. Biden is taking positions that are identical to Bernie Sanders' positions.
I don't see that. I really don't see that.
I encourage you to check it out. Deon, I need to move along, but you should check out some of his. In fact, just go back and read his State of the Union address. I think you'll find an awful lot there. Ben in Kansas City, Kansas. Hey, Ben, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Still enjoy your show.
Thank you.
Immensely. So, what I was listening to you today, and there's been some talkers talking along the same line, but, in my opinion, they do away with the Black History books because they don't want people to know what happened then, and that stirs up anger, mainly because they see a lot of the same things happening today.
Yeah, in a different context and with a different intensity, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and the gay thing, that's just a religious thing there.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see them taking away stories and books about the Dark Ages, because that also would tell people what it was like when church and state were together, and they don't. I got a feeling they won't want people to look back on that either.
Oh yeah, and they're probably trying to strip the Salem witch trials out too.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, because all that was bogus as well.
Yep.
But my concern is that the Catholic Church is pushing all these religious agendas here in this country, and that's just fine with the right wing. They'll go right along with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is my feelings that still, and I've said this before, that church and state is the biggest agenda to unionize them by the Catholic Church. And I just feel that, we've got concerns that your previous caller said, if you don't give a little, the country could go down. But I believe this church and state issue is the biggest issue, and that will take down the country and the world. And I know it's inevitable. I know that you read the Bible. I heard you say the other day that you pray in the mornings, and I think all that is wonderful. And speaks of God's people being imprisoned and killed. So the only way that could happen is if church and state are together. And there's also a book you can read that explains all of this very well, and you can fact check it. In fact, I would encourage you to fact check all of it. And it's
I don't think you can fact check Revelation, Ben. I mean, and back in the 70s, I read, the late great Planet, all of Hal Lindsey's stuff, and all those other things, and got pretty upset about it for a while. But it's prophecy is prophecy, whether it's Joseph Smith or Paul or whatever. My concern is that religion should not be running our country. That's not how our country was set up. We need to be pushing back aggressively against this. And on top of that, the numbers I was sharing with you about these people who call themselves Christian nationalists, as terrible as their positions are, they represent fewer than 20% of Americans. They're like 1 in 7 Americans more or less, rather than 1 in 5. And so we've just got some education work to do, in my opinion. Ben, thank you for the call. Jeff in Portland. Hey, Jeff, what's up?
Hey, happy Anti-Fascist Friday, Tom, and safe travels to you this weekend.
Thank you.
Tom, you bet. And Tom, like everyone else, I of course give President Biden a thumbs up for the State of the Union speech. But I do think you'll agree with me, we still have to keep up the pressure from the left. And that applies not only to policy stuff, but also his personnel decisions. Common Dreams had a post last night about how the Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh, is probably going to be stepping down soon. And although the Deputy Secretary of Labor, Julie Su, would be a perfect choice, she's an Asian American progressive, inexplicably, Nancy Pelosi's trying to work behind the scenes to push the president to choose Sean Patrick Maloney, who's a corporate centrist he's a corporate centrist who lost his re-election campaign. So that would be a huge mistake. We got to get Julie Su in there. And also, Tom, over at the post office, President Biden still hasn't filled 2 empty Trump-appointed board seats. They became vacant in December, and meanwhile, DeJoy's planning to lay off 50,000 post office employees.
I know. Aren't those nominations waiting on the Senate, or has he not put them forward? Forgive me for not being so up on this as I should be, probably.
Well, I confess I don't know the exact.
I thought he had
details.
nominated 2 people, and in fact, I have a vague recollection of having read their names on the air back when it happened, but I think that it has to go through the Senate.
Okay. I mean, I was just looking at Robert Reich's Twitter feed yesterday, and he said there's the 2 empty seats still from December, but you might be right. But let's get DeJoy out of there before 50,000 post office workers lose their jobs. And finally, Tom, I agree with you, that the president shouldn't roll around in the mud with MAGA extremists. He needs to stay laser focused like FDR was, and calling out corporate and oligarchic greed. And, the railroad companies, as you highlighted with that Lever News piece, would be a good start. But let's go after big oil and with a windfall profits tax.
Jeff, I'm with you. Windfall profits tax, yes.
Listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Helping you in the water cooler wars. Right back with your calls right after this. And welcome back. Eric in Mojave, California. Hey, Eric, are you like on the edge of the Mojave Desert? Is that where you live?
I'm right up on the top of Los Angeles County. I'm right at the edge of Kern County. Okay. Tom, I am so happy every once in a while when I get a Friday off and I don't have to watch you on DVR and I get to maybe call you in and talk to you. Great show as always.
Thank you.
I just wanted a couple things. The problem with religion, they all think they're right, and common sense says they can't all be right, but they can all be wrong, and they tend to treat the world like a car that they're not going to keep, and so they don't really try to fix it. So but what I really wanted to talk to you about, we've been having a lot of police shootings and everything, and the beating in Memphis is unbelievably bad. But animal control officers, when they get a bear or a mountain lion, they trank it. Mm-hmm. Why are we not tranking humans? Why do we shoot humans, especially our humans, our citizens? Why is that? Why can't we, instead of giving them a taser and and a gun, give them a taser, a dart gun, or a tranq gun and a gun, and only use the gun when they're taking fire.
Yeah. You know,
I mean, if a guy's getting crazy or is got no legs and has a knife, shoot him with the tranq gun. When he wakes up, he's already in the back of the car, handcuffed, and he's safe.
I'm guessing one of the problems is that tranquilizers are pretty dose dependent. You could probably kill somebody if you shot somebody who weighs 120 pounds versus somebody who weighs 300 pounds. You're going to get a very, very different response.
Right, but even if you did it with the minimum, it would slow them down enough to not have to beat them to death, to put them in the back of the car.
Yeah. Well, there have been a couple.
Nobody ever suggests that. I don't understand that. We have animal lovers that would never put up with an animal control officer shooting a bear.
Yeah, there was a case, maybe 6 months ago where a guy was arrested and injected with a tranquilizer by the police. They carry them, apparently, or at least that police department did. But they weren't shooting a gun at him. They were using
all
a
of them
syringe.
have to do it because and did you see the State of the Union? I have to admit, I ran against Kevin McCarthy, and I can't believe he's speaker now. But I have to give it to the president. He really, really, most Democrats don't know how to fight with Republicans, but he really did good.
He took it to them.
I'm very proud of him.
Yeah.
You're right. Your previous caller said, he wasn't always as progressive as he should be, and you said he's, had his Jesus come to moment because he doesn't have any more wins to win.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, he did really well. I'm proud of him.
I thought so too. Eric, were you the Democratic nominee against Kevin McCarthy?
No, I had to run as a Republican because this district up here is Republican, and they only vote for ours.
So you challenged him in the primary. Interesting.
I didn't beat him in the primary, no.
Yeah. But you challenged him there, yeah.
I challenged him there, and I had Democrats that were emailing me telling me, if you get past the primary, because, the Republican primary is closed to them, but they were like, if you get past the primary, we'll vote for you because I was progressive and liberal, and, and even though I'm for the death penalty, I'm not for the cops having the death penalty on their hip.
Yeah, there you go. So you were calling yourself, what, a Teddy Roosevelt Republican?
Well, I was Teddy Roosevelt and FDR combined.
Okay. Eric, nice to hear from you. Thank you for the call.
Let's put it that way.
Good talking with you. There you go. We'll be right back. It's 9 minutes before the hour. Stay with us. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. Help support Progressive Radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, or one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio and tag You're It. Wondering what this new legislative session the next 2 years are going to bring us with Republicans in charge of the House of Representatives? Well, Congressman Bill Pascrell put together a list that kind of summarizes what we should expect. 100% of the Republicans in the House of Representatives voted against cheaper gas for Americans, voted against cheaper insulin for Americans, voted against cheaper prescription drug prices, 100% voted against child tax credits, 100% voted against stimulus checks, 100% voted against the Voting Rights Act. They voted 100% voted against ending gerrymandering. They voted 100% against ending climate change, 100% voted against prosecuting rich tax cheats, 100% voted against saving Roe v. Wade, 99% voted against banning assault weapons or fighting domestic terrorism. The list goes on. I've got an entire video all about the entire list over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. $53 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls. AJ in La Mesa, California. Hey, AJ, what's up?
Good Friday to you, Tom.
Thank you. Back at you.
Quick suggestion, in case you haven't looked up the search engine you had recommended yesterday, and also during the hiatus during the holidays when you were playing archived programs, MUO, Make Use Of website, has an article from October 2022 titled 7 Reasons You Shouldn't Use NEVA, the new quote tracker.
What are the reasons?
Well, they deep dive into it, and it's not as private as one might think. In other words, your searches and the sites you visit may indeed be tracked.
Oh, I know that. That's true of any of your, well, it's not true of DuckDuckGo apparently, but that's certainly true of Google. I'm not so worried about being tracked, frankly, AJ. I'm more concerned with, the thing I loved about NEVA is on every search response, it gives you all the links, that you can link to, and there's a little up thumb and a down thumb. And so, like, if I'm searching on taxes or something, the top 10 hits are always going to be right-wing websites. Well, I just down thumb them, and they never show me those websites again. And it allows me to customize my searches, which is, like, really important and valuable to me. Yes.
Well, for listeners who may be concerned about their privacy, a quick search will bring up such sites as Software Testing Help. Another one is Be Encrypted, 15 Best Private Search Engines. These are all reviews from this year, 2023. Right. There's also the VPN Mentor site, the Restore Privacy site, all of which are highly reputable. I work in computer security. A heads up for what it's worth.
Good. Well, thank you, AJ. I appreciate the information. I'll have to use NEVA to search about NEVA and see what it says. It'll be interesting.
Take care.
Thanks a lot, AJ. Larry in Bellevue, Iowa. Hey, Larry, what's on your mind today?
Hey, congratulations on an incredible show today.
Well, thank you. We only have about 50 seconds left, though, so we got to get right to it, Larry.
Oh, last caller. Joyce has done an incredible job at screening. I wanted to call in regard to Sam, I think it was earlier, about Black History Month. Mm-hmm. And I so much want to learn more Black history.
Yeah.
It's given such a short shrift. It's even given the shortest
Well, Sam mentioned
month of the year.
he's learning an awful lot from Joe Madison's show on the Urban View channel over on Sirius XM. It's right next to the Progressive channel that I'm on channel 127. I think it's channel 126. And Joe's show precedes mine. And Joe just does a great job over there, too. So if you're interested in Black history and what's going on in the Black community, I can't recommend Joe highly enough. Larry, I'm sorry, I'm out of time, but I look forward to future conversations. Thanks so much for calling in today. We'll be back on, next week. As I said, I'll be gone Monday, but Jefferson will be here. I'll be back with you on Tuesday. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. Get out there, tag You're It. Plus, special thanks to Louise Hartman, Sean Taylor, Nate Atwell, Jamie Holly, Joyce the Hammer, Nance, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick White, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jay LeBlanc, Al Gorilla Rhythm, Connor Arroyo, and Carna Verde, all the fine folks who help make this show work every single day. Thank you to them, and thank you to you. We'll see you on Tuesday. I'll see you on Tuesday. We'll be back on the air on Monday, as I said. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
Hey, it's $5 Friday. You know what that is, right? There's two ways that people support Free Speech TV. One is by contributing just, a one-off donation. Call up 877-378-8669 and say, I'd like to contribute $100. Here's my credit card number. Just, ding the credit card and keep up the great work. And by the way, this is my favorite show, or, whatever. You have those kind of conversations. That's one way to contribute to Free Speech TV, is the one-off gifts. And we really appreciate those. Free Speech TV, or I should say really appreciates them. I'm speaking on their behalf. It's important, and particularly during our pledge drives, those one-off gifts are actually the main driver of our reaching our goals, which is why we do those pledge drives. But the second way that people contribute to Free Speech TV is the one that today is all about, that $5 Friday is all about. And that's the people who make a regular sustaining contribution. And what we're asking for on $5 Friday is $5 a month. If you would just contribute $5 a month, that, if I'm doing my math right, is $60 a year. But it's spread out over the months. You call them up and tell them your favorite show and give them your credit card. And you know, they will then every month ding your card for $5. And, you know, for as long as you say. You can say do it for a year or just do it until I tell you to stop. And the benefit of that to you, first of all, is that, you know, $5 a month is a lot easier than $60, you know, one-off. But secondly, it helps Free Speech TV. I mean, one of the big challenges when you're running a nonprofit organization, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, is knowing what your cash flow is going to be like. If you're running an organization that depends on donations, you just never know. I mean, all kinds of things affect donations. First of all, some people just stop giving, or, you know, they die, or they go away, or they move out of state, or they change, you know, whatever. Secondly, you've got other things that compete with donations. This is a real challenge for Free Speech TV in particular, because so much of our message is essentially political, or it's about politics, and politics has its own unique calendar. So, you know, every 2 years you've got an election, and every 4 years you've got a presidential election, and leading up to those elections you have primary elections, and during those primaries and during the general elections there's just this massive outpouring of you know, politicians begging for money. And so what happens to Free Speech TV and a lot of other charities and a lot of other nonprofits, of course, is that during those periods of time, donations go way down because people are giving to their favorite politician instead of to Free Speech TV. So the benefit, you know, through this of these, of the $5 Friday, of the $5 contributions, is that those wild swings, you know, after the election, donations go up because you don't have politicians begging for money. Before the next election, donations go down. To even out those swings, we get as many people as we can to say, yes, I'll give you $5 a month, or you know, if you could afford more, that's fine. Nobody's going to stop you to say, you know, make it $10 or make it $25, or, you know, I had a really good year, make it $100 a month, whatever you can do. But what that does is it evens out those wild cash flow swings that are just the bane of the existence of anybody who works in the nonprofit field. So $5 Friday, and by the way, a lot of people have answered this call. 43% of free speech donors in 2022. Now, it's not 43% of the revenue, that's 43% of the people. It's a smaller portion of the revenue. 43% of the revenue that Free Speech TV took in 2022 was from people making these regular sustaining contributions. You know, typically the $5 a month. So these are change makers helping to create a better world. And you can do it. You can be one of the change makers to help make a better world by simply giving $5 a month or whatever you can afford to help transform our society. By the way, the first 5 people at the beginning of every half hour who start a new monthly donation or increase their monthly donation, if you're already giving $5 a month, you can call up and say, hey, jack that up to 10. The first 5 people every half hour will receive a Free Speech TV mystery box in the mail. No, I don't know what's in it. It's a mystery. That's the whole point of mystery boxes. So help out Free Speech TV. This is such an important venue, this television. We are literally the only genuinely progressive television network out there. We're the only certainly the only non-commercial progressive television network in America. We have a footprint all across the country. We're available